Chapter 55. Master, is the sense of presence that you speak of very important? I Ching asked seriously. Shining paused. Not really. She just felt a little aggrieved. Don't worry, Master. He stood up directly. I'll go and explain to them right now. The person who fought the Shen Yuan family that day was actually Master. We actually did not enter the back palace of the Shen Yuan family at all. With that said, he turned to go downstairs to explain to the people who were discussing. Come back here. Lone Moon hurriedly pulled him back, frowning. Can't you brainless fan calm down? Do you think people will believe you if you just say that? Besides, with Xin Ying's invisibility, even if people believed her, they would forget about her in the blink of an eye. Then, why don't I go to the Shen Yuan family and ask them to come out and explain? That way everyone would believe him. Che, forget it. Lone Moon rolled his eyes. The Shen Yuan family has never mentioned Shining, and they insist that the traveling immortals of the family did not return on the day we went. Don't you understand? Wasn't it because they could not afford to lose face? The 5 strongest traveling immortals of the family were beaten up so badly that they looked like grandchildren. If the whole Upper Azure world knew about this, they would lose face. The 4 aristocratic families of the Upper Azure world look like they are on good terms, but in reality, they are fighting each other both openly and secretly. They did not say the whole truth because they wanted to protect themselves. Only brainless people would tell everyone that all the experts of the family were beaten up. I Ching frowned. No, I can't let people misunderstand Master. Alright, put away your fan logic. Your Master can't be cured. He turned to glare at Shining. Control your brainless fan. Shining then turned back and said, Chef, let's talk after we eat. Yes, Master. I Ching then sat back down. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He had said so much, but he could not win against one sentence from her. For the 101st time he regretted for the first time. Why did he follow these 2 idiots to the Upper Azure world and offend an aristocratic family in the heat of the moment? Was the future bleak? He sighed and glanced at a certain someone who was still eating her meal as if nothing had happened. Suddenly he remembered something. Oh yes, Shining, when you were looking for their family head, apart from settling the matter of them fighting for the treasure, did anything else happen? He didn't want to stir up any more trouble. No. Shining tilted her head and suddenly thought of something. She looked up and took off the pendant on her leg. Does the radish and pickled vegetables count? Salty? Holy shit. Lone Moon jumped to his feet. This. With a look of disbelief on his face, he reached out to take the pickles between the radish's leaves to take a closer look, but the radish's claws were slapped away by its leaves. It can't be you? Lone Moon turned to look at Shining, then looked around and whispered, That's not very kind of you. All you had to do was beat them up to vent your anger. Why did you have to snatch the Shen Yuan family's 1,000 Leaves vegetation spirit as well? He's the lifeblood of the Shen Yuan family. What did you do to the Shen Yuan family, Master? I wasn't the one who took it. The radish wanted it. Shining shrugged and threw the pendant to Lone Moon, ignoring the radish's objections. Look for it. Lone Moon looked down at the radish in his hand. Didn't the Shen Yuan family master fight to the death with you just like that? Shining thought back to the corpse in the hall. Fighting to the death was a little difficult for the Shen Yuan family master. The radish used its own dandelion to exchange for it. They looked pretty happy. How can that be? He looked closely at the vegetation spirit in the radish's hand. Using his divine perception, he realized that there was no trace of any spiritual perception in the spirit plant. The vegetation spirit had withered long ago. Connecting the dots, he immediately understood why the Shen Yuan family had to snatch the radish. I see. He looked at the reluctant radish in his hand. This little thing must have sensed the aura of one of its kind. That's why it wanted to take the withered grass away. GGG. The radish squeezed out of his hand and turned to hang back on Shinying's leg. But Shining glared at it. Its leaves wilted instantly and it retreated pitifully. But what does it want the withered grass for? To bury it? Lone Moon used his divine perception to scan the withered vegetation spirit. Apart from the residual spirit chi, the medicinal value of the withered leaves was not even comparable to that of the dandelion. Could it be that it can revive this vegetation spirit? His eyes brightened. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that it was possible. They were both vegetation spirits formed from spirit chi. They were the same existence. It was normal that they could influence each other. As soon as he said this, Shining and I Ching could not help but turn to look at the radish on the table. The radish's body tilted, its face blank. Vegetation spirit plants have always been very resilient. Who knows, it might really be able to revive them. Really? Shining leaned closer curiously. Try reviving them. Gee. The radish responded. It raised the withered leaves on its head and looked at her. As if it understood what she said, the withered leaves stood up again. Gee, it cried out excitedly. Suddenly, the whole radish began to glow with a green light. This is vegetation chi. Looks like it's really possible. Lone Moon was overjoyed. He stared closely at the radish on the table. This was the first time he had seen a revival skill. The light on the radish's body grew brighter and brighter. In a short while, it had already enveloped its small body. A horizontal line appeared on its white, fat body. The leaves on its head suddenly began to grow longer, spreading over its white, fat body. It rolled up the withered leaf and put it down. The leaves stirred a few times, and the withered vegetation spirit was neatly folded into a square shape. It moved closer to the horizontal line and then, with an ah sound, it ate it. A moment later, it let out a familiar loud sound. Burp, Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, Flip's table. Damn it, so it's just for eating. Aren't you a vegetation spirit? You just need to absorb spirit chi. Why do you need to eat withered grass? Big grass eating small grass. You're really something that the foodie Shining picked up. Lone Moon suddenly had the urge to turn it into a pickle. DCH, forget it. I'm full. Shining sighed. Indeed, it was a useless vegetable. She was about to get up. Master. I Ching suddenly let out a cry. This radish? She turned around and saw that the burping radish suddenly glowed red. In an instant, it turned from a white radish to a red radish. Is this ripe? Oh no, it's going to transform. Lone Moon was shocked. He looked around and said, the spirit chi here is too messy. The wood spirit chi is too weak. It will affect its transformation. There's a forest in the east of the city. I Ching reminded. Let's go. Lone Moon immediately picked up the red radish on the table. The three of them summoned their spirit swords and turned to fly out. The shopkeeper at the door smiled and walked out quickly. 3 customers. Before he could finish speaking, the 3 of them had already disappeared into the horizon. You haven't paid your spirit stones? Chapter 56. The 3 of them arrived at the forest. The moment they landed, the radish's body glowed red. Its entire body began to stretch, and the surrounding wood spirit chi surged towards it. Lone Moon hurriedly set up defensive and spirit chi arrays all around the forest. The radish's entire body had turned red, and the wood spirit chi around it grew thicker and thicker. The dense spirit chi caused the trees within a few meters of it to grow wildly, encircling it and becoming denser. The 3 of them had no choice but to retreat more than 10 meters away. At this time they could no longer see the radish's figure. All that was left was an impenetrable cocoon made of trees. The sky suddenly darkened, and lightning began to flash between the clouds. It's going through a tribulation, Lone Moon reminded them, and set up an array around the 3 of them. Indeed, in the next moment, there was a loud rumble of thunder. White lightning tore through the clouds and struck the tree cocoon below, instantly charring half of it. But the lightning did not stop. Instead, it struck one after another, getting heavier and heavier. In less than a minute, the impenetrable cocoon had been struck into pieces. A cloud of dust flew in the middle, obscuring the radish's appearance. Only a faint burnt smell wafted through the air. It was not until the lightning struck 81 times that the clouds in the sky dissipated, and the surroundings became bright again. The ground was charred black, and there was only a large pit where the radish had been. It's burnt? Shining could not help but ask after a long time. Master, it's fine, I Ching explained. Vegetation spirits are not affected by the karma of the mortal world before they are formed. That's why the lightning tribulation is the least harmful to all living beings. Sure enough, in the next moment, the originally scorched black ground seemed to be rejuvenated, instantly turning into a vast expanse of green. In just half a breath of time, the ground was filled with flowers that bloomed in vibrant colors. A figure crawled out of the pit on all fours. It was a teenager girl, who looked to be only 15 or 16 years old. She was dressed in green and her long hair reached the ground. She had a young face and she was breathtakingly beautiful. She was like the most perfect masterpiece of heaven. Even the flowers on the ground paled in comparison to her beauty. Even Chi Chingyu was not as beautiful as her. For a moment, it was as if the sun and moon had lost their radiance. The only thing left in the world was the person walking slowly towards them. The 3 of them were stunned. Even their breathing stopped for a moment. They were shocked by the appearance of the spirit chi of heaven and earth. His faint smile was like the blossoming of thousands of flowers, and the sound of stringed instruments lingered in the ears. "Little Missy, I'm transforming." Before he could finish his words, he suddenly stumbled. His beautiful figure trembled and fell directly to the ground, rolling all the way to the feet of the three people. The three of them were speechless. He could vaguely hear the sound of something shattering. As expected, it was still that radish. Straight face, little Missy. It raised its head pitifully and reached out to hug her thigh out of habit. Shining frowned and took a step back. "Get out of my way," she said angrily. "Hey." Shining nudged Lone Moon. "Is it a boy or a girl?" "How would I know?" Lone Moon looked at the radish carefully. Spirit plants and plants are mostly genderless. After they transform, they can probably be either male or female. Transvestite. Shining paused and took another step back in disgust. The radish was stunned, and its whole body wilted like a frosted eggplant. Tears welled up in its eyes and it looked nothing like before. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Looking at the person on the ground who was still looking at them with tears in his eyes, he explained, "He just transformed and is not used to walking. That's why he's like this. He'll be fine in 2 days." With that said, he could not help but step forward and reach out his hand. "Get up." The radish's eyes turned cold. With a smack, it slapped his hand away and said loudly, "Get lost, ugly." With that said, it continued to look at Shining with tears in its eyes. "Wawa. Radish needs little Missy to carry him before he can get up." "Shining, I Ching." The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. 2 seconds later, "Damn it, I'm going to cut you up." He directly pulled out his sword and rushed forward. "Supremacinho, calm down." I Ching hurriedly stepped forward and stopped him. "He just transformed and is still a child. It's normal for him to not understand human emotions. You don't have to take it to heart." Who would believe that? This radish was obviously doing it on purpose. And what the hell was this Supremacinho? I Ching could only turn to look at the radish. "Radish, just now you, Che." The radish snorted coldly. "Another shameless follower." I Ching, swish. Another sword was pulled out. The next moment. What are you trying to do?" "I'm little Missy's radish." "Stop, help. Little Missy." Shining. Afastres King retard. This one-sided 2-on-1 fight went on for a whole 15 minutes. The two only stopped when there was no longer any unscathed skin on the radish's newly born face. The radish covered its swollen face and pitifully shrunk back to its original form. The originally white and plump radish had already turned purple. "Little Missy." The radish did not give up and reached out to Shining with its leaves, feeling very aggrieved. But I Ching directly lifted it up. "Master, what do you think about making radish soup tonight?" "How can soup taste as good as stir-frying it?" Lone Moon shook his sore hands. "I think we should cut it into strips or fry it or even fry it raw." Sob, sob, sob. "You're just jealous of my beauty?" "Hey, that's enough from the two of you." Shining rolled her eyes. "Was it fun to bully a vegetable? Didn't you say we're going to that whatever city?" "Upper Azure City." Lone Moon took a step forward. Usually, people who enter the Upper Azure world from the lower realm will go to Upper Azure City first. All the big aristocratic families and sects will recruit disciples there. We've just arrived and don't know much about the upper realm. It's good to go there and find out more. As he spoke, he pointed to the right and said, "When we were eating earlier, I asked around. Upper Azure City is not far from here. We'll reach it after passing through this forest." "Oh, then let's go." Shining waved her hand, indicating for I Ching to summon his spirit sword. The three of them were about to fly up on their swords when suddenly they heard an angry roar from behind. "Stop right there." Shining faltered. The next moment, more than 10 cultivators flew out of the forest and surrounded them. 2 middle-aged men walked out of the crowd. One was dressed in a blue robe, the other in a green robe. Both of them had 3 copper coins embroidered on the corners of their robes. They looked at the three of them angrily. The man in green held an abacus in his hand. It looked a little familiar. You've really made it hard for me to find you." The middle-aged man in green took a step forward and swung the abacus in his hand. He turned to the person beside him and said loudly, "Boss, these are the people who dined and dashed at Drifting Fragrance Restaurant." Chapter 57. Dine and Dash. Just now. No wonder this person looked familiar. He was the shopkeeper of the shop just now. Xinying's face darkened. She and I Ching turned to look at Lone Moon angrily. Holy shit, why are you looking at me? Lone Moon's face darkened too. He was too worried about that dead radish that he forgot. And why did he have to be the one paying? Shopkeeper. Lone Moon stepped forward awkwardly. This was the first time in his 2 lives that he did not pay for a meal and was chased out. It was too embarrassing. Cough, it was our mistake. We were in a hurry to leave and forgot to pay. We'll make it up now. How many spirit stones did that meal cost? Stop pretending. The shopkeeper glared at him and said angrily, all the cultivators saw it just now. The 3 of you ran away on purpose. If I didn't chase you today, would you come back to settle the bill? Lone Moon's face turned red. He felt even more embarrassed. They really did not remember to pay. You want to settle it with just 1 word? It's not that easy. The meal you just had was made with spirit rice. It cost at least 10 inferior grade spirit stones. I've seen too many people like you. You won't shed a tear until you see your coffin. If I don't teach you a lesson, won't everyone dare to come to my shop to eat and drink for free in the future? With that said, he waved his hand. The people surrounding him all drew their weapons. Wait, shopkeeper, let me explain. They really just forgot. Lone Moon was a little anxious. But he was in the wrong and could not do anything. Let's talk this out. Hey, say something. Stiffened. Lone Moon turned back to look at his companions who ran away. The shopkeeper frowned and turned to look at Shining. Took a step back and turned their heads away. Forget it, it's not important. These people have no sense of loyalty this time. Let's go back. He could only bite the bullet and say, he waved his hand and flew away with more than 10 cultivators. I'll pay double the amount of spirit stones for that table just now. A moment later. Why are you looking at me? The shopkeeper's expression became a little better. Weren't you the one who ate the most just now? He scanned Lone Moon from head to toe and then gestured for everyone to put away their swords. Didn't I Ching change his name to Radish too? Yes. Don't worry, he directly took out his spirit stones. With your invisible presence, they won't remember you. Please don't blame us. Lone Moon patted his chest and promised. Good. However, on account of your sincerity, Upper Azure Town. The shopkeeper calmed down and continued. Half of the shops on the streets had the same wooden sign hanging high in front of them. I will accept your spirit stones. On it was a line of golden words that blinded the eyes. Spirit stones and suddenly dogs are not allowed to enter. You look like cultivators from the upper realm. I'll spare you this time. MP. Didn't he say next time I see you eating and dashing, Upper Azure Town was an immortal city in the south of the Upper Azure world. Lone Moon nodded vigorously. This city was located at the edge of the various powers and did not belong to any aristocratic family or sect. Lone Moon froze. It was one of the few neutral immortal cities. A moment later, the city was full of crisply. As long as one was a cultivator, one could enter. It was very lively. Most of the cultivators who had just ascended to the Upper Azure world, or those who wanted to join the aristocratic families, would come to look at the other to find out more. What about Lone Moon and I Ching asked around in the city and roughly understood the situation in the Upper Azure world. Just like the rumors in the lower realm, the biggest immortal cultivation powers in the Upper Azure world were not the sects but the 4 aristocratic families. Besides the Shen Yuan family, famous for their alchemy, there was also the Yu family, famous for their talisman arrays, the Yi family, famous for their beast-taming skills, and the richest family, the Yin family. The Yin family controlled more than half of the spirit stone mines. More than half of the shops in Upper Azure Town belonged to the Yin family, including the shop where they dined and dashed. Shining finally understood why all the shops in the city hung the same sign. MP. The 4 aristocratic families each had their own strengths and were equally powerful. Besides the main family, there were also various big and small branch families. They controlled more than 70% of the immortal cultivation resources in the Upper Azure world. Although there were very few people who could successfully ascend to immortality, most of them came from the 4 aristocratic families. What's more, the aristocratic families were very powerful. They each had dozens of soul formation experts and 4 or 5 traveling immortals. The rest were some immortal cultivation sections. Although they occupied a spirit vein and had many disciples, they were not strong enough to compete with the aristocratic families. The strange thing was that there were very few itinerant cultivators in the Upper Azure world. Because of the aristocratic families, except for some dangerous places or places with thick yin qi, there were very few places in the Upper Azure world without an owner. Regardless of whether they were born in the Upper Azure world or came up from the lower realm, they would all choose to join a power. As a result, Shining and the others were in an awkward situation. Given our current situation, it's not suitable for us to join any aristocratic family. Lone Moon frowned. Shen Ying's reputation for dashing and dashing aside. After the Shen Yuan family's incident, he and I Ching became famous. But the 4 aristocratic families were originally in a balanced situation. If they let them join, they would be going against the Shen Yuan family. And the other sects would not dare to openly go against them. It's not easy to survive in this world. Unless the Shen Yuan family is stupid enough to invite us back, no matter if it's a sect or a family, they won't be able to tolerate us. Why must I join? Shining asked. Can't I cultivate on my own? This place is different from the Middle Azure world. The aristocratic families have always been merciless to fiendish cultivators. If you want to find a place with abundant spirit chi to cultivate, you have to use the name of a sect or aristocratic family. Otherwise, you will be treated as a fiendish cultivator. That's why there are almost no itinerant cultivators. Oh. In other words, he needed to hang a card. Otherwise, he would be an unregistered demonic cultivator? Then let's set up our own. Establish one? Lone Moon was shocked. Master, are you talking about establishing a sect? I Ching was also shocked. Yeah. She nodded. Wasn't it just finding a place to land? Rather than relying on others, it was better to rely on oneself. Or did he need to go through some procedures or a business license? Build a sect with just the three of us? Don't joke around. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at her. How can it be so easy to establish a sect? Do you really think you can open a shop as long as you have money? Let's not talk about anything else, we have to have a territory. The spirit veins in the Upper Azure world are mostly occupied by the aristocratic families and sections. Where are we going to find spirit veins? Unless we go back to the Middle Azure world. Besides, it was not that easy to find one in the Middle Azure world. Without spirit veins there will be no spirit chi. Without spirit chi, how can there be spirit plants and spirit beast? Without these, how can we cultivate? He looked at the radish beside him, which had already returned to its human form. We're just a radish. Although it's a treasure and we can find all the spirit plants in the world, most of the Upper Azure world belongs to the aristocratic families. It grows on their land. Even if you know where it is, you can't just go and pluck it. Shining turned back to look at the obedient radish. Is radish very important? Of course. Lone Moon explained. Let's not talk about alchemy first. Wherever there are plants or spirit plants, the spirit chi is many times more than in other places. Spirit veins are also formed because of this. No cultivator doesn't need spirit chi. So vegetables were so important. As long as there are more radish fields, it will be enough? You can say that. I've thought of a very suitable place, Shining said seriously. What? 3 days later, Demon Monarch Hall. The rabbit monarch's legs turned to jelly and it rolled down from the throne. It looked at the person in front of it in disbelief. It was dreaming, right? It had to be, right? Yo rabbit, long time no see. Chapter 58. Shin, don't be nervous, I just want to discuss something with you. Shining touched its ears. Rabbits were indeed timid animals. She quickly pointed to the chair behind it and said, Come sit, sit. The rabbit monarch trembled even more violently. Instantly, it felt as if its ears had gone numb. It tried to sit back on the throne several times, but its legs gave way and it slid down. Great. Great Immortal, please give me your instructions. Seeing that it could not sit properly, Shining squatted down beside it and chuckled. It's like this. The three of us have just arrived in the Upper Azure world and have not found a place to stay. I heard that the demon realm is not divided into upper, middle and lower realms like the three Azure worlds. Moreover, it is the closest to the Upper Azure world. I wanted to ask if you have a suitable place? Great. Great Immortal wants to find a place to stay? The rabbit monarch heaved a sigh of relief. So she did not want to destroy it. Thank goodness, thank goodness. It turned to look behind her and saw 2 other cultivators. It had seen I Ching before, but it did not expect her to become a soul formation cultivator in such a short period of time. And the other one was also a soul formation cultivator. It became even more respectful towards Shining. Great Immortal indeed. Her followers were all the strongest. Even if they were not strong, she had to create the conditions to become the strongest. Something like that. Shining recalled Father Nyo's words. I want that kind of radish field. Didn't you often give me radishes? There should be, right? Yes. I guess. What was a radish field? Couldn't she be more specific? Shining. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He tugged at her. The suitable place you mentioned is the demon realm? Was she out of her mind? That's right. The demon realm was vast and sparsely populated. It did not belong to any aristocratic family and was close to the Upper Azure world. But they were cultivators. Don't worry. I'm very familiar with the rabbit. She patted his shoulder confidently. It's not a matter of familiarity. Lone Moon's frown deepened. It's not like you don't know that the demon realm is filled with demonic chi. Cultivators can't cultivate in such a place. Oh. Shining paused. She turned to look at the rabbit and added, Rabbit, I want a place without demonic chi. How can the demon realm not have? Yes, great immortal. The rabbit monarch nodded vigorously. Do you have to agree so quickly? It can't be true, right? Even if there's such a place in the demon realm, it's impossible for it to produce a spirit vein, right? Rabbit and one with a spirit vein. She continued to add conditions. No problem, great deity. He nodded vigorously. Shit. Why did you agree to everything? Such a place is hard to find even in the Upper Azure world. The demon realm is so big, even if there was, it would be hard to find. Can you find it? Rabbit? You can do it, great immortal. Very soon, great immortal. He nodded furiously. Holy shit, what did you do to this rabbit? Forget it, I don't care anymore. Do whatever you want. Lone Moon stood to the side, but Xin Ying and the rabbit monarch were already preparing to set off to check out the territory. He could only follow. He didn't believe that in a place like the demon realm, there was no demonic aura, abundant spiritual energy and spirit veins and spirit plants. We're here. Immortal. Holy shit. There really was one. Did they have to be so efficient? Lone Moon looked up at the towering floating peak in front of him, unable to regain his senses for a long time. The peak was filled with light and clouds, like a fairyland. The peak was overflowing with spirit chi, and he could faintly feel the aura of several spirit veins surging within the peak. Such a lively spirit vein was several times stronger than that of the Black Heaven sect. Strangely, this floating peak floated above the demon realm, and the surrounding demonic aura seemed to intentionally avoid this spirit peak. It only lingered a few kilometers away from the spirit peak, and did not seem to invade the peak at all. It was as if a completely opposite region had been created in the demon realm. This place is very close to the Upper Azure world, and it's the floating peak with the most abundant spirit chi. The rabbit monarch pointed to the floating peak and explained, its position happens to be at the point of extreme yang between the human and demon realms, and demonic aura cannot invade it. So that's why the demonic aura only lingered a few kilometers away? The spirit chi here is abundant, and it's definitely suitable for great deity to cultivate. And it's also the place with the densest concentration of spirit herbs in the demon realm. In the past, the spirit herbs that were sent to the great immortal's abode were harvested from here. The rabbit monarch pointed to the front. Xin Ying turned to look, and indeed, there were radishes all over the mountain. It really was a radish field. House rabbits. Little missy, I like this place. The radish pendant jumped down from Lone Moon's leg and happily rolled around in the radish field. It was a vegetation spirit, and naturally liked places with abundant wood spirit chi. Xin Ying ignored it and patted the rabbit monarch. Rabbit, this is it then. Thank you. You're welcome, great immortal. This is what I should do. I'll be staying here from now on. Do you need anything else, great immortal? Anything else? She thought about it seriously. I just have a small need. Can you find some household items, kitchen utensils and other daily necessities? I'll go prepare them now. Oh, and remember to have a table. Yes, great immortal. How about building a house while you're at it? You have experience anyway. No problem, great immortal. Does great immortal have any specific requirements for a house? It doesn't have to be too big. Just a room, a living room, a kitchen and a bathroom will do. How about you just build it like your demon monarch palace? It looks quite nice. I Ching, Lone Moon, is this a small need? You might as well let her build a palace. I've never seen such a shameless person. Yes, great immortal. No problem, great immortal. Did she have to be so shameless? She really agreed. Lone Moon frowned. He could not help but nudge I Ching beside him. Hey, how do you know this rabbit demon? Why is it so nice to Xin Ying? It was simply obedient. I Ching thought about it and answered seriously after a while. Maybe it's because Master hasn't exterminated its entire clan? Exterminated? What the hell was that? This was not good relationship. This was clearly a freaking feud, right? For all? 3 months later. Alright, stop eating. Get ready. We have to go to Upper Azure Town. Lone Moon pulled a certain foodie down from the dining table and instructed. Upper Azure Town? Xin Ying looked confused. She stuffed the last piece of pastry in her hand into her mouth. Why? What else can we do? We're going to recruit disciples, of course. Lone Moon rolled his eyes and said, I've already asked around. Tomorrow is the annual recruitment day for all the aristocratic families and sects in the Upper Azure world. Everyone who wants to cultivate will have to go to the various immortal cities to register. The closest one to us is Upper Azure City. Why do we have to recruit disciples? She was stunned. Couldn't they just focus on cultivating themselves? Chapter 59. Didn't you say you wanted to establish a sect? Not recruiting. Holy shit, don't tell me you don't intend to recruit people? Lone Moon sized her up and pointed to a palace surrounded by immortal chi. If you don't want to recruit disciples, why the hell did you build such a big palace? After the rabbit monarch brought them to this spirit peak, he recruited a large group of demons the next day and built a house quickly. In just a few short months, this floating peak, which only had spirit plants, had already been built with a large number of palaces, the exquisiteness of which was not inferior to that of the Demon King Hall. Isn't it nice? Shining glanced at the magnificent palace. Nice my ass. Lone Moon was so angry that his liver hurt. Don't tell me you built so many buildings for the three of us to live in. Are you a freaking emperor? To live in such a big place, it would take 2 days just to walk one round, alright? Recruiting disciples is so troublesome, ha ha ha. Lone Moon laughed coldly. Without any disciples, are you going to clean up this place in the future? 2 seconds later. Father Nyo, I think what you said makes a lot of sense. Let's go recruit people? With that said, he turned to I Ching and said, Chef, quickly pack up these pastries and make some snacks for the journey. Oh yes, bring more ingredients, we can have a picnic if we can't rush back. Yes master, no problem master. At the end of the day, you still can't bear to part with these food. Lone Moon had thought it through very clearly. Their floating peak was filled with spirit herbs. It would be very easy to train a group of disciples. Although there were only 3 of them now and it might be a little tough in the early stages, he was after all someone who had managed a company with millions of people. He was very familiar with these things. As for learning sorcery and the like, I Ching and he were both sword cultivators. They could first recruit a few talented sword cultivator disciples. Moreover, he was proficient in array formations and I Ching was proficient in refining weapons. If there were suitable disciples, they could also teach them. As for refining pills and taming beasts, they could only rely on self-study. As for Shining, she could just be a mascot and cheat in peace. Lone Moon thought that he had thought of everything. He even drew up a thick stack of plans overnight, including how to nurture disciples, how to raise the overall standard of the sect, how to expand the influence of the sect and so on. However, when the 3 of them arrived at Upper Azure Town and got into position, they ran into a serious problem just as they were about to accept their disciples. What sect are you from? A white-robed youth asked innocently. Lone Moon, I Ching, Shining, holy shit. He actually forgot to give the sect a name. For all, Ngungu 1 minute later. Fellow Taoist, wait a moment. Although among the 3 people, 2 of them seemed to have high cultivation levels, and their auras seemed to suppress everyone else present, no one dared to join them easily. Father Nyo. Shining yawned and the flag in her hand tilted. It's already been a whole morning and we haven't gotten a single person. Why don't we go back and eat? Stand properly. Lone Moon glared at her exasperatedly and straightened the flag. He had thought that it would be difficult for new sects to recruit disciples, but he did not expect the situation to be so cold. There were not even many people who came to ask out of curiosity. And they were all people with mixed spirit roots or spirit roots of too low a grade. They were not suitable to be sword cultivators at all. How much longer do I have to stand? I'm so tired. Shining could not hold on any longer. I Ching immediately took the flag from her hand and took out a wooden chair from his storage bag. Master, why don't you sit down and rest for a while? Sure. Xinying's eyes brightened. Just as she was about to sit down, a person dressed in a gray robe suddenly rushed out of the shop that had been closed all this time. As if he did not see where he was going, he tripped over the chair and fell in front of the three of them. The gray robe slid down, revealing half of an exceptionally beautiful robe. Shining paused and instinctively wanted to help him up. But someone beside her beat her to it and rushed out of the shop. "See you?" She quickly helped the person on the ground up and tugged at the person's gray robe that had been pulled down, wrapping the beautiful robe back in. "How are you? Are you hurt?" "Big Sister Yu Hong." The woman in the gray robe hurriedly shook her head and looked around in panic. The next moment, another 7 or 8 people walked out of the shop. They were dressed in the same gray robes as her. Chapter 60. "Are you all right?" Shining asked. "I'm sorry, I didn't know you would come out from there." "I'm sorry." I Ching immediately cupped his fists. "I was the one who put the chair there." He could not let Master take the blame. "It was an accident, it's all right." The one called Yu Hong smiled at them. With that, she led the 7 or 8 people away. Just as she turned, she stopped in her tracks as if she had seen something. Suddenly, she walked back quickly and glanced at the three of them. "Immortal Masters, are you recruiting disciples?" Lone Moon nodded. "Yes, our invincible sect has just been established. We are indeed recruiting disciples. What do the three of you think of us?" She pointed at the few girls behind her who were all dressed in dusty clothes. "You want to join my sect?" Lone Moon was delighted. Finally, there were people who knew what was good for them. "Yes, we are willing to join." She looked up at the flag and continued, "Invincible sect." "All right." Lone Moon chuckled. "Join us. You won't regret it." "But—" He looked at the group of girls seriously. "I see that you are all cultivators and 3 of you have already formed your core. Were you really not part of a sect before?" The woman named Yu Hong was stunned, and a trace of panic flashed across her face. She immediately recovered and said with a smile, "Immortal Master, the few of us come from the same village. In the village, we all started cultivating at a young age, so it's normal for us to have a cultivation level. If you don't believe me, you can check our divine perception to see if there are any imprints of other sections. After cultivators joined a sect, they would be given a life token and leave a sect imprint in their divine perception. Unless their cultivation was higher than the person who set up the life token, this imprint could not be removed. And the people who set up the tokens were at least nascent soul cultivators. Lone Moon's divine perception swept over. These people did not have any imprints. "Are you sure you want to join my invincible sect?" He felt that something was wrong. "Yes." Yu Hong nodded and turned to look at the others. They all nodded. "Then let's test your spirit roots first." Lone Moon took out the Dharma artifact for testing spirit roots and asked them to come forward and test. However, the result shocked him. Among these people, the weakest one was a 3rd-grade wood, water, and metal tri-spiritual root. With this kind of talent, not to mention the various sects, he would even be qualified to join the various aristocratic families. Why did they come to a new sect that had just popped up? Were they blind? "Immortal Master, can we join? Your spirit root is not bad." Lone Moon nodded. Yu Hong was delighted. "Then can Immortal Master bring us back to the sect now?" Noticing the other party's doubt, she immediately explained, "We sisters set off for Upper Azure Town half a month ago. It's a long journey, so we wanted to hurry back to the sect to rest." "Big Sister Hong?" Before Lone Moon could reply, a woman beside her suddenly tugged at Yu Hong. Her voice was very low, as if she wanted to say something but did not open her mouth. Her head hung even lower. "Is it convenient for you, Master Celestial?" Yu Hong asked anxiously again. "Why don't I bring them back? Aren't I the sect master?" Shining raised her claw and suggested. "I'm sleepy anyway." "Master." I Ching was shocked. He wanted to say something but stopped. Lone Moon directly rolled his eyes at her. "Then as the sect master, can you find the way back?" She could not refute that. I Ching frowned and glanced at Shining. He reminded, "Let Radish lead the way." Lone Moon frowned and looked at the two of them in surprise. After hesitating for a while, he pulled Radish off his leg. "Radish, transform and bring Shining back." Radish's leaves fluttered and its body flashed. It transformed into that unisex look and turned around, wanting to pounce on Xinying's leg. "I knew it. Little Missy must still like my peerless looks. Get lost." Xinying stepped on his face and pressed it into the ground. She turned to Lone Moon and said, "Lend me your fan for transportation too. There are so many people." "That's my intrinsic Dharma artifact. Your intrinsic Dharma artifact can be casually lent to others." Lone Moon glared at her. Then he took out a leaf-shaped Dharma artifact and threw it into the air. Immediately, it became more than 10 times bigger. Go up. Use this. Shining then dragged Radish up from the ground and led the group of new girls. In a short while, they had already disappeared into the horizon. Lone Moon looked at I Ching with some dissatisfaction. You clearly know that there is something wrong with that group of people. Why did you agree to let Shining bring them back? Don't worry. Master has her own plans. I Ching looked in the direction that the group flew. What's more, Master will definitely be fine. What Lone Moon said made so much sense that he was actually speechless. Indeed, no matter who was in trouble, that cheat would not be in trouble. Radish controlled the Dharma artifact all the way back. When they came, Lone Moon set up a few transportation arrays along the way. So compared to before, they spent less than an hour to reach the border between the Upper Azure World and the Demon Realm. Big Sister Yu Hong. Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed softly. She grabbed Yu Hong's hand, who was at the front. This is the Demon Realm. Yu Hong was also shocked. Although she knew that the location of a small sect was definitely not a good place, she never thought that the other party would directly bring them to the Demon Realm. Don't worry. Shining turned back to look at them. It was rare for her to be so kind as to explain, the animals inside are all good vegetarians. They won't hurt people. As she said that, the Dharma artifact had already brought everyone in. The moment they entered the Demon Realm, an array lit up. Instantly, everyone on the leaf was wrapped in it, isolating them from the surrounding demonic chi. Let's wait and see. Yu Hong then calmed down and turned to whisper to the others. No matter where this so-called invincible sect was, based on their current situation, entering the Demon Realm was actually beneficial to them. What's more, the woman in front of them did not seem to have any cultivation at all. If they really fought, they naturally would not be afraid. The only thing they had to be wary of was the man named Radish, who had a fawning smile on his face and was desperately trying to get closer to the woman. From the way he transformed just now, could it be that he was also a demon? One by one, everyone focused their attention and paid attention to the situation around them. But what happened next caused them to be somewhat at a loss. They saw a 6th-level demon pass by. Greetings, great immortal. Greetings. The demon flew away. A 7th-level demon passed by. Good afternoon, great immortal. Good afternoon. The demon flew away. An 8th-level demon passed by. Great immortal. Yo, hello. The demon froze. A 9th-level demon passed by. Great immortal, have you eaten? Not yet. Clang, the demon fell down. Everyone, what was going on? Were these really demons? Why did they not attack them when they saw them, but instead, the higher their cultivation, the more polite they became? What happened to the saying that humans and demons could not coexist? Could it be that there was something special about this woman in front of them? Everyone could not help but look at the woman. But no matter how they looked, there was still no trace of spirit chi in her body. She was obviously immortal? Was it because their cultivation levels were too low that they could not tell? Just like the two from before, even Sister Yu Hong could not detect their cultivation levels. Could it be that they met some great hidden immortal sect? Everyone felt a little excited. Even Yu Hong's eyes lit up. She began to reevaluate the two people in front of her. Immortal Master. Finally, someone could not help but say, I heard from the two immortal masters that you are the sect master of Invincible Sect. Yes. Shining nodded lazily. Our cultivation levels are low, we cannot see the cultivation levels of the immortal masters. May I know the cultivation levels of the two immortal masters? Oh, they are soul formation sword cultivators. Soul formation. Sword cultivators. And there were 2 of them. Everyone took a deep breath and their eyes lit up. Then, may I know Senior's cultivation level? Me? Shining hesitated and answered honestly, I have no cultivation level. That person was shocked, thinking that she had heard wrongly. Aren't you the sect master? Yes. She yawned and said, isn't this because I lost in the rock-paper-scissors game just now? Everyone, what the hell? For all. Chapter 61. We're here. Shining pointed to the front, awakening everyone who was still in a daze. They looked in the direction she was pointing and were stunned by the scene in front of them. They didn't think that there would really be an immortal sect in the demon realm. Not only was the sect impervious to demonic aura, but the magnificent palaces at the peak of the mountain were comparable to the residences of the 4 aristocratic families. Not to mention the spirit herbs that covered the mountains along the way. Upon closer inspection, Every single one of them was a 10,000-year-old supreme-grade spirit herb. Moreover, they planted them so casually. Even the aristocratic families didn't have such boldness. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time, and instantly made up their minds. This was not something that a small immortal sect could have. A hidden immortal sect. This invincible sect was definitely a hidden immortal sect. Yu Hong's heart was filled with excitement and worry. She was happy that such a powerful sect would definitely be able to protect everyone. She was worried that if the people in the sect found out about their identities, would they, Sister Hong? Everyone had the same thoughts as her and could not help but call out worriedly. Yu Hong tightened her grip on the hand of the person beside her and hurriedly shook her head. Lowering her voice, she said, "We'll act according to the circumstances." Everyone felt uneasy as they followed Shining and Radish down from the clouds. They followed the two of them through the main hall, through the back hall, and came to a courtyard. They walked to a deck chair. Then, she lay down on it. Straight face, her limbs were spread out and she laid down face down without any hesitation. "I'm so tired," she muttered, and her eyes began to droop uncontrollably. Even the man called Radish had a natural expression on his face. He dug a hole on the ground out of habit and sat in it, looking like he was about to fall asleep too. Everyone, what did this mean? Why did they suddenly not care about them? Was this a show of strength to the new disciples? Or was this some kind of entrance test? The few of them waited for a while. Seeing that Shining and Radish had no intention of moving, Yu Hong had no choice but to step forward and ask tentatively, Immortal Master, Sect Master? Ah. Shining finally moved and tilted her head to look at her, as if she just remembered them. "Oh, you guys can do as you please." What the hell did she mean by please? Sect leader, don't we need to register in the hall when we enter? You have to ask Father Nyo about this. He was the one who wrote the recruitment plan. There's no rush. Let's wait for him to come back first. Then, sect leader, do you need someone to bring us to familiarize ourselves with the people in the sect? After all, we've just joined and we're afraid of offending any of the seniors. Now that he said it, it did seem necessary, but what are you going to test me on? Up to you. Lone Moon waved his hand. Just let them demonstrate. All right. Shining put down her bowl and chopsticks and walked over. With a serious expression, she walked past everyone and finally stopped in front of Yu Hong. Sister, do you have freestyle? What's big? Lone Moon, F your sister, do you think this is a talent show? Why don't you just let him rap? Oh, help what, Sida? Yu Hong looked confused. Sect Master, please forgive me for my ignorance. What do you mean? Master is indeed unfathomable. I Ching's eyes lit up. This must be some high-level cultivation technique? Master, can you say it again? Unfathomable my ass. Hey, what do you mean by holding a pen? This is a freaking joke, alright? I Ching, you're a master. Can you not forcefully support me when you're bragging? I see. Yu Hong nodded. Please enlighten me, Sect Master. You guys really King believed it? Where's your intelligence? Actually I was thinking, enough. Lone Moon could not help but interrupt. He turned back and glared at Shining. Shut up. Go and eat your food. Weren't you the one who asked me to ask? He rubbed his forehead hard and took a deep breath to suppress the anger in his heart. That's all for today. Go and rest. We'll talk about cultivation tomorrow. With that said, he took out a few tokens to open the restrictions and gestured for them to go to the residence on the right side of the front hall. Everyone looked at Yu Hong blankly. Seeing her nod, they bowed and retreated. So tired, there's something wrong with this group of people. I Ching only spoke when they could no longer see them. Nonsense. Lone Moon turned back and rolled his eyes. You only return to your intelligence when you encounter problems that have nothing to do with Shining. Just now, 3 of them had clearly formed their cores, but the cultivation techniques they reported were only low-level. Some of them were even techniques that itinerant immortals would not cultivate. Who would believe them? It's obvious that none of them were telling the truth. He looked in the direction in which they left. It looks like they got into some trouble and hid here. And it's not a small problem. Traitors? Or escaped slaves? I Ching frowned. They did not look like good people at all. They must have something on them to hide their auras. That's why we can't see through their identities. He turned the flute in his hand. But they can't hide for long. Maybe we'll find out tomorrow. Late at night, a figure appeared under the eaves of a house, looking around nervously. Sister Hong? In the next moment, 8 other people appeared in front of her. They quickly walked up to her. You're here. Yu Hong looked at the crowd and counted the number of people. Is everyone here? Were we discovered? Sister Yu Hong, don't worry. One of them replied in a low voice. We checked both the front and back. No one followed us. Apart from those 3 people, there really is no one else in this invincible sect. That's good. Yu Hong heaved a sigh of relief. She still looked at the few of them nervously. But we can't relax too early. Don't forget that this is the demon realm. You saw those high-level demons earlier. They're not something we can handle. Everyone's expressions darkened. Sister Yu Hong, can we really escape to the lower realms safely? Yes, it's for sure. Yu Hong clenched her fists. She did not know whether to encourage herself or the others. We can even escape from Sky Severance Cliff. What's there to be afraid of? We'll be free once we reach the lower realm. With that person's protection, we can start a new life. No one will dare to look down on us again. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone's eyes lit up. It was as if hope had been reignited. That's right. I heard that she used to be like us, a woman. She will definitely help us. But there were still some people who were worried. They asked hesitantly, Sister Yu Hong, are we really leaving? I don't think. Those 2 supremacies are bad people. What's more, we're in the demon realm. Jin Xiang, that old thief, will not find his way here. What's more, those 2 supremacies are soul formation cultivators. They're sword cultivators. Chapter 63. That's right, sword cultivators have always been hard-working people. If we stay here, maybe we won't. The other woman was also a little shaken. I also heard that 2 sword cultivators broke into the Xianyuan family, and even the Xianyuan family head could not do anything to them. They're also 2 people. Do you think they're... See you? Yu Hong's expression darkened and she interrupted her. So what if they are the sword cultivators who defeated the Xianyuan family? After so many years, haven't you seen it clearly? Not a single man can be trusted. We can't take this risk. You saw that woman called Shining too. Why is it that the other 2 are soul formation cultivators but she has no cultivation at all? Don't you think it's strange? Yu Hong's expression changed. She's the sect master, but I think she's just a joke. Maybe those 2 are hiding something and don't want to teach her. Or maybe there's something else going on. Are you sure that people like that will protect people like us who betrayed the sect? Everyone fell silent. What's more, they're already suspicious of us, Yu Hong said in a low voice. That's why we have to leave quickly. I think the people chasing us in Upper Azure City have already left. Let's take this chance to find the contact person and send us to the Middle Azure world. Everyone nodded. Everyone hide your aura well. This is the demon realm. Remember not to alert any demons. Yu Hong checked the array formation on each of them and said in a low voice, once we find the contact person, we'll be safe once we reach Mingyin Mountain. So, you're going to find roasted chicken gal? A familiar female voice suddenly sounded from behind her. Oh. Yu Hong jumped in fright and drew her sword. Only then did she see the person in front of her. Sect Master. How did you? Everyone's expression changed and they looked at each other. Where did she come from? None of them had noticed her. When did you come? Yu Hong's heart sank. Since. Shining thought for a moment before answering, when you scolded men. You heard everything. Yeah. Shining sighed and pointed to the room beside her. She said seriously, I say, little Hong, I don't object to the 2 of you whispering to each other in the middle of the night, but you're squatting outside my window and talking to my bedside. Isn't that a little too much? She was about to sleep. It was Little Red. No, the important thing is, this is your room? How could this be? Yes, I've been staying here for a few days. Shining nodded. Don't you live in the rear hall? Oh, that's just the kitchen. Kitchen. What F*** King kitchen? Which sect would use the entire back palace as a kitchen? What kind of sect was this? Sister Yu Hong, what should we do? Siyu tugged at Yu Hong's sleeve anxiously. He laughed coldly. Only soul formation supremacies can cut through the void. How can I have that ability? The array that connects the 2 realms is not here. Follow me. With that said, he turned and walked to the right. Yu Hong hesitated. She looked back at the crowd and followed him. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Indeed, only soul formation cultivators could cut through the void and open the passage between the 2 realms. Other than that, the only way to enter the lower realm was through the Yin family's transportation array or through the demon realm, which was connected to the 3 azure realms. But to them, traveling in the demon realm was too dangerous. The Yin family's array had always been used to attract soul formation cultivators from the lower realm. Moreover, the Yin family and the Yu family were close. The Yin family would never let them pass. It was not easy for her to find out that there were cultivators in Upper Azure City doing business between the two realms. That was why she came here. She had suffered so much along the way. Now she finally saw hope. Thinking of this, she turned to look at Shen Ying apologetically. Lowering her voice, she said, "Don't worry. We don't want to harm you. When we reach the array, I will remove the restriction on you and let you go." Huh? What restriction? Chapter 64. Yu Hong took a deep breath and carefully followed behind the man with her sisters, who looked equally happy. They passed through several streets, but for some reason the more they walked, the livelier the surroundings became. The man did not bring them to a secluded place, but to an even more bustling area in the city. Finally, they stopped in front of a magnificent mansion. Her heart sank and she instantly recovered from the joy of success. She immediately summoned her spirit sword and attacked the man in front of her. "You lied to us." The man was shocked and quickly retreated more than 100 feet to the right, narrowly dodging her sword move. "Go!" Yu Hong could not care less about chasing him. She turned around and shouted for everyone to leave, but it was too late. That mansion suddenly opened, and a figure flew out from inside. With a clang, a spirit sword stabbed into the ground behind everyone, blocking their path of retreat. "Hong is indeed my favorite disciple. You saw the problem so quickly." A person slowly descended from the sky. He was dressed in blue and had a long beard on his face. He looked like a modest gentleman, and his whole body emitted the suppressive force of a nascent soul cultivator. Yu Hong felt cold all over, as if there was a chill seeping out from her bones. Even the other girls at the scene took a few steps back, trembling uncontrollably. "Zhen Xiang, you old thief." Yu Hong gritted her teeth and glared at the person in front of her. She thought that after avoiding his pursuit during the day, he would definitely send people to look for them elsewhere. She did not expect that he had already predicted that they would come back and even colluded with the contact to trick them here. "Perfected one, I've brought the people. Can go now?" The man who led the way bowed to Zhen Xiang. "Thank you, fellow Taoist, for helping me catch these traitors." Zhen Xiang smiled amiably. "You're welcome, perfected one." The man smiled and looked at everyone. If he had known that they were from the Yu family, he would not have accepted this business. Fortunately, he did not really send them to the lower realm. He immediately rode his sword and left the scene. He did not want to get involved with the matters of the aristocratic families. "Hong, why did you do this?" Seeing that they were far away, perfected one Zhen Xiang smiled even more amiably. "Originally, you helped me sneak into Sky Severance Cliff as human cauldrons and severely injured old monster Yu Meng. That was a great merit and would definitely be rewarded by the main family. Why did he destroy his own future and go to the lower realm? If you don't return to the Yu family after hurting that demon, he won't let you off." You make it sound nice. Old thief. If we hadn't escaped, would you have let us return to the Yu family alive? Yu Hong snorted coldly, her hatred exploding. "You are a perfected one from the Yu family's side branch, yet you have dealings with a fiendish cultivator from Sky Severance Cliff. If the main family knew about this, they might not let you off." "Shallow woman." Zhen Xiang glared at her and said, "I'm doing all this to slay demons and protect the Tao, to numb those fiendish cultivators." T. Yu Hong became even more furious. "What do you mean by slaying demons and defending the Tao? When have you ever done anything righteous?" But he had killed a fiendish cultivator. "You just casually threw us, the useless cauldrons, to the sky-severing cliff to die." She looked straight at him, her eyes filled with bone-deep hatred. "What's funny is that we, the useless cauldrons, not only did we not die, we even did what you could not do. We seriously injured that demon. Didn't you chase after us to make people think that you were the one who did it and not us, the cauldrons, so that you would be valued by the main family?" "Shut up." Zhen Xiang's expression contorted for a moment. "You're full of nonsense. It's clear that you betrayed the sect, and you even planned to go to the lower realm and join forces with the fiendish cultivators. Today, I'm only stopping you from committing a grave mistake. Who exactly is allied with the fiendish cultivators?" Yu Hong directly tore her own sleeve. Her right hand was covered with scars of all sizes. They looked like old wounds, but the flesh on her hand was exposed and it was very frightening. "We are your disciples in name, but in reality, we are not even comparable to cauldrons. The injuries on our bodies, our destroyed meridians, our broken spirit bones, which one of them was not caused by you." The moment she finished speaking, everyone took off their long gray robes. Without the cover of their Dharma robes, the 8 people present revealed their original appearances. All kinds of horrifying scars crawled all over their bodies. Some were on their hands, some were on their feet, and some were even on their faces. There were already so many visible on their skin and muscles. It was obvious that there were more under their clothes. You adopted us since we were young, but you did not teach us orthodox sorcery. You only taught us the sorcery that only cauldrons would learn. You treated us like objects and forced us to help you test your skills to pay for your poison. After we died, you would refine us into elixirs. The more Yu Hong spoke, the more hatred she felt. Her eyes grew redder. You threw us to sky-severing cliff only because our foundations were damaged by your cultivation technique. We could no longer be used by you to refine elixirs. She took a step forward. Do you really think that we don't know that you killed us just to hide the fact that you are cultivating a fiendish technique? Zhen Xiang's expression was as black as the bottom of a pot. He no longer looked like a gentleman. His gaze towards Yu Hong was filled with murderous intent. His voice was also several times colder. He raised his hand and summoned his weapon. Since you all know so clearly, all the more I cannot let you leave today. With that said, he turned his hand and the Dharma artifact in his hand flew towards Yu Hong with a murderous aura. Yu Hong only felt a huge pressure coming towards her. She gritted her teeth and activated the golden core in her body. Even if she had to sacrifice herself, she had to buy time for the people behind her to escape. Suddenly she felt a weight on her shoulder. The spirit chi that she activated dispersed. Someone beside her took a step forward. Wait a minute. Shining suddenly reached out and grabbed. In the next moment, that menacing Dharma artifact was caught in her hand. It was actually a copper bell. Jin Xiang was stunned. It was as if he had just realized that there was someone else in the crowd. His Dharma artifact was actually so easily controlled by the other party. Yu Hong was even more shocked. Wasn't she under a restriction? Why could she still move? Shining looked directly at Jin Xiang and said, "Well, what's your relationship with that? Gone and ding those 2 scumbags?" Gone? He was stunned. His eyes widened. You mean Gan Zirwei and Yu Ding? I know them. Xin Ying's eyes narrowed. That's right. Her figure flashed and in the next moment, she was already standing in front of the other party. Sorry, I hate scumbags. As soon as he finished speaking, he felt his collar tighten. A huge force pulled him directly to the ground. In the next moment, a fist came crashing down. With a loud bang, Jin Xiang's entire body was punched into the ground. It was the kind that could not be dug out. Following that, the ground rumbled and the mountains shook. It was as if an earth dragon had passed through. From the place where Jin Xiang was buried, the entire ground began to crack. The streets were overturned, the buildings were tilted and dust flew everywhere. In an instant, the entire Upper Azure City was torn into pieces by the huge cracks. Everyone, the entire place was silent. The 9 girls' eyes widened. They did not regain their senses for a long time. This was Sect Master? I'm not dreaming, right? Didn't they say that she had no cultivation? Destroying the entire city with one punch? Her cultivation must be heaven-defying. A while later, let's go. Shining patted her sleeves and turned around calmly. Before everyone could react, she said mechanically, Go? Go where? What exactly happened just now? Who were they? Where were they? Go to that, what cliff? Sky. Severing cliff? Yes, don't we still have to deal with that old man? Anyway, we can buy one get one free. Old man? Could it be the fiendish cultivator Yu Meng? Let's go, let's go. As she spoke, she jumped over from the other side of the crack. Let's hurry, we can still make it back in time for breakfast. Everyone, that's a demonic den. Don't make it sound like you're buying cabbage from the streets. When the 2 of them hurried back to the sect, they found a certain someone sitting calmly in front of a stone table at the back of the hall. A group of girls dressed in various colors surrounded him, asking about his well-being. Sect leader, what do you think of the dumplings? Does it suit your taste? Sect leader, try this lotus seed soup. I use spirit fire to boil it, it's really fragrant. Sect leader, my soup dumplings are cooked. Do you want to try them? Sect leader, how about drinking my freshly made soybean milk? Sect leader, Lone Moon, for all, Ngungua, what the hell? Were they filming a culinary show? Why was it that every time she came back she could turn everyone around her into chefs? This is outrageous. I Ching quickly walked over and blocked the crowd. The dumpling skin is too thick, the lotus seed soup is too thick, and the soup dumplings are all leaking out. I don't know if this soybean milk is drinkable. You actually have the face to bring it to Master. This is simply tarnishing my sect. Do you want to join in too, you brainless fan? For all, Nguo Shining. The corner of Lonman's mouth twitched. He directly pulled a certain someone out of the crowd. Speak, what the hell is going on? I'm hungry. Shining put on an innocent expression. Master, I'm going to cook now. I Ching waved his hand and instantly swept away all the food on the table. He rushed into the kitchen. Lonman's expression darkened even more. There was really no saving a brainless fan. What did you do last night? I went to fight. So she was really the one who did that fiend's den thing. What's up with these people? He pointed at the group of girls around her who had left but returned. Who did you beat up this time? Before Shining could answer, Yu Hong took a step forward and explained, Supremacy Sect Master saved our lives and even helped us take revenge for a blood feud. So, we wanted to do something to repay her. The girls nodded one after another. The way they looked at Shining was no longer as guarded as yesterday. Instead, their eyes were frighteningly bright, just like those crazy fans who would lick their screens. Everyone began to recount last night's events one after another. Oh yes, Shining suddenly added. That scumbag knows the two people who bullied Roasted Chicken Gal. You mean? Lone Moon paused, then understood what she meant. So the person behind the jade tripod was a perfected one from the Yu family. No wonder Gon Zirwei could hide in Sword Comprehension Peak back then. He suddenly understood what these people had been through. Lone Moon turned to look at the crowd. After a while he said in a low voice, Forget it. On account of the fact that you are all victims, I cannot be calculative about you sneaking into my invincible sect. Now that the matter has been resolved, you can go wherever you want to go. Supremacy, we had originally planned to go to Mingyin Mountain in the Middle Azure world. Yu Hong explained, Mingyin Mountain Fiend Venerable is different from other fiendish cultivators. Although she cultivates fiendish cultivation, she has never done evil. The same goes for the people in her sect. I heard that she once had the same experience as us. She took in many girls like us. But our identities are special. I don't know if she will. I see. Shining suddenly seemed to have thought of something. Father Nyo, do you have a pen and paper with you? What? Lone Moon frowned, but he still waved his hand to summon a pen and paper from the stone table. Shining sat down again and scribbled a few words. Then, she folded the paper in her hand and handed it to Yu Hong. This is for you. Roasted Chicken Gal is quite familiar with us. Give this to her. She should take you in. She was stunned for a moment and her face was blank. Roasted Chicken Gal is Mingyin Mountain Fiend Venerable Qingyu. Aren't you going to the Middle Azure world to look for her? Lone Moon had to explain again. He turned to glare at a certain someone. Can't you have a freaking name that you can remember? A look of surprise flashed across Yu Hong's face. She looked at them with a faint sense of disappointment. She turned back and exchanged a look with the girls behind her. Gritting her teeth, she seemed to have made a decision. The 9 of them took a deep breath and suddenly knelt down in front of them. Sect Master, please take us in. Sect Master. Without waiting for them to speak, Yu Hong raised her head and said, After what happened yesterday, we understand that no matter how strong the protection is, it is only temporary. Only by becoming stronger ourselves can we change our fate. Mingyin Mountain may be good, but we are still immortal cultivators. Unless we disperse our cultivation and start from scratch, we will forever be stuck here. Instead of living in fear and trepidation for the rest of our lives, why don't we work hard to cultivate and fight for a way out? We've never done anything evil, so why can't we live in this world with dignity? We also want to be like Sect Master, so strong that no one dares to bully us. We have nothing to be humiliated about and nothing to be afraid of. Sect Master's cultivation is profound. Even if we can learn a 10,000th of your skills, it will be of great benefit to us. Previously, we had eyes but failed to see and offended the Sect Master. No matter what punishment we receive, we are willing to accept it. Please allow us to officially enter this sect. From now on, we will work hard to cultivate and bring glory to Invincible Sect. Sect Master, please accept us as disciples. As soon as she finished speaking, everyone spoke in unison. Sect Master, please accept us as disciples. 8 clang. Before Shining could answer, the sound of something shattering came from behind. A figure flew out from the kitchen. Sword chi surged all over his body, causing the houses in the back hall to collapse. No. Chapter 66. It was nighttime. Shining could not resist the invitation of Zhou Gong. Her eyelids closed inch by inch. Just as she was about to fall asleep, she suddenly opened them. She looked at the bright moonlight outside the window and sighed. She had no choice but to get up. She opened the window on the right and said to the figure outside, "Chef, how long do you intend to stand there?" Yiqing was stunned. He immediately stood up straight and said seriously, "Master, don't worry. I will guard this place well. I will not let anyone come near and disturb Master." He did not believe that anyone would dare to snatch her from under his nose. Sigh, Little Red and the others have already officially entered the sect. They will not come here in the middle of the night. Master, people are sinister. We have to be prepared. He said seriously, "It was my mistake that caused Master to be kidnapped the second time. I will not allow myself to make a third mistake. But you can't stand outside my window every day. You have to wake up early to make breakfast tomorrow. Master, don't worry. I'm not tired." "I'm tired." Shining sighed deeply again. This was the first time she realized that her chef was so stubborn. She climbed out of the window and pulled him to sit beside her. "Chef, it's so late. If you don't sleep and stand here, I won't be able to rest. Why don't I promise you that if someone really comes, I will shout for you. But, once Master falls asleep, you won't wake up even if lightning strikes." Nonsense. What if some blind person kidnaps Master again? It's safer for me to stay here. Was she a child? How could she be kidnapped so easily? The more Yiqing said, the more he felt the need. He became more determined. "Go rest, Master. I will not disturb your sleep." "You've already disturbed me." Shining looked at this stubborn person in front of her. She had a headache. After thinking for a while, she sighed and said helplessly, "I won't accept Little Red and the others as disciples." "All right." He turned back. "I won't accept them in the future either," she added. Sure enough, his eyes lit up like the stars in the sky. "Really?" "Yes." She nodded. "Their cooking is not as good as yours. Can we go back to sleep now?" "Yes, Master, no problem, Master." Yiqing stood up abruptly and turned around to leave the courtyard happily. He looked as if he had hit the jackpot and disappeared at the door in a flash. Shining, having a chef with such a strong ego was also a problem. It seemed like he couldn't change his taste so easily in the future. Recently, the entire demon realm had been very busy. All the demons were busy helping the great immortal rebuild the rear hall that had mysteriously collapsed. Shining was busy eating while Lone Moon was busy teaching the new disciples. Originally, Yiqing was also involved in teaching sorcery. However, he did not know what had happened to him recently. From the second day after these disciples entered the sect, he built a temporary kitchen next to Shen Ying's house and immersed himself in researching new dishes. No one could pull it out. Lone Moon had completely lost all hope in this sword immortal who was about to become a chef immortal. Yet he could not let Shining help him. Otherwise this foodie would definitely bring out a new oriental chef class. He could only grit his teeth and accept these people. On the first day of class, he carefully checked everyone's cultivation and sorcery. After checking, he was shocked. None of these 9 people's spirit roots were complete. Although it could be seen that they did have good qualities in the past because of the multiple forceful bursts of spirit chi to nourish them, most of their foundations were destroyed. Moreover, the meridians in their bodies were messed up. Some were even poisoned. Not to mention cultivation, it was already a miracle that they could live until now. Fortunately, Invincible Sect did not have anything else. There were spirit herbs and spirit plants all over the mountains. It was only a matter of time to heal their injuries. However, he and Yiqing were not good at concocting medicine. Their damaged foundations could not be repaired. In the future, it would be especially difficult for them to cultivate sorcery. They might not even be able to advance an inch. It was just right for them to become sword cultivators. Originally, these people were raised as human cauldrons from a young age. All they learned were yin and soft sorcery. He also did not know much about other types of cultivators. If their foundations were still intact, he might not be able to teach them too much. They might as well take this opportunity to become sword cultivators. Sword cultivators were different from sorcery. They relied on techniques and understanding of sword intent. Therefore, even if their foundations were damaged, they might be able to go further on the path of sword cultivators. But compared to ordinary cultivators or even sword cultivators, their lives were 100 times more difficult. Lone Moon looked at the group of delicate girls in front of him and hesitated. "Supremacy, don't worry. We are not afraid of hardship." Knowing what he was worried about, Yu Hong took a step forward and said with a determined expression, "We have already experienced the toughest things in the world. What is there to be afraid of?" Lone Moon's brows relaxed. He glanced at the crowd again. He had underestimated these girls. To be able to climb out of such a hellish situation without giving up, and to stay true to their hearts, Why would they be afraid of a little hardship? Good. From today onwards, you are sword cultivators of my invincible sect. Lone Moon waved his hand and immediately summoned several spirit swords. He placed them in front of everyone. You have to start from the simplest sword moves. Yes. Everyone answered in unison. From then on, Supremacy Lone Moon, who was once the #1 sword cultivator in the Middle Azure world, began his life of treating people and teaching them swordsmanship at the same time. In an instant, the originally quiet invincible sect became lively. From time to time, people could be seen waving their swords. At first, Lone Moon did not have much hope for these disciples. After all, the reason why there were so few sword cultivators was because of the high requirements for the cultivators, especially the understanding of the sword Tao that surpassed ordinary people. Apart from I Ching, who was born with the sword embodiment, he was the only soul formation sword cultivator in the entire Middle Azure world. Even in the Upper Azure world, which was full of talents, the number of sword cultivators who could reach the nascent soul realm could be counted on one hand. This showed how difficult it was to cultivate as a sword cultivator. In the beginning, he asked everyone to become sword cultivators not only to give them hope, but also to give them a way to deal with enemies in the future. What surprised him was the perseverance of these people. Because they knew their own situation, they worked even harder and cultivated day and night. In just a few short months, their cultivation, which had been stagnant, actually showed signs of loosening. This was an unexpected surprise. Lone Moon felt an inexplicable sense of pride from the bottom of his heart. They were indeed the people he had taught. The only thing that made him unhappy was that this group of people was clearly taught by him. Every time they looked at Shining, their eyes were more respectful than anyone else's. Even when she coincidentally came out to walk the carrots, the eyes of the group of girls seemed to move uncontrollably. If he was not standing in front of them, they would have rushed over to ask for autographs and photos with her. They were becoming more and more brain-dead fans in a second. To this he only wanted to say, "Damn this cheater." Chapter 67. Sect Master. Taking advantage of the break time, the softest sister Siyu could not help but step forward to stop the cheat. "Hey little green sister." Lone Moon glanced over, wondering who little green sister was. He turned to see the disciple called Siyu dressed in a green dress. Indeed, she still could not remember her name. "Do you want to eat?" Shining asked as she nibbled on a fruit. No need." Siyu pushed the fruit back shyly. "I just have a question. I want to ask Sect Master." "Go ahead." Shining nodded in a friendly manner. What do you think of our sword technique just now? Are there any shortcomings?" "Che." Lone Moon rolled his eyes. It would be a wonder if she knew. "This is pretty good." Indeed, Shining stiffened. She looked around and said after a while, "If it's not enough, maybe it's strength?" Sister Siyu looked confused. "Isn't there a saying, 1 strong man can defeat 10 skilled men?" "Lone Moon, you plagiarist dog." Siyu was stunned for a moment and then her eyes lit up. Even the other girls looked enlightened. "I understand now. Thank you for your guidance, Sect Master." Hey, you really believed it? Oh, wait a minute. Why did this sound so familiar? The face of I Ching's diehard fan surfaced in his mind. Could they also be? He immediately scanned all the girls present. Fortunately, no one had an epiphany. Even Siyu only bowed deeply and ran back to continue her cultivation. She was just working harder than before. Even when the others swung their swords, they were using more force than before. Lone Moon heaved a sigh of relief. In order not to let Shin-Ing command them blindly and disrupt his teaching plan, the next day he specially set up a transportation array between the newly built kitchen and the vegetable field where Radish lived. This completely eliminated the possibility that she would have to pass by the martial arts arena when she helped a certain chef get the side dishes. The strange thing was, the girls' passion for learning did not diminish because they could not see their idol. Instead, they worked even harder. Their sword techniques became more and more ferocious. Even their resting time was automatically reduced. Sometimes, when he unconsciously released his divine perception at night, he could see them secretly cultivating against the stone walls with their bare hands. Why did he feel that something was wrong? Where is it? He thought about it for a long time but still couldn't figure it out. He could only remind them to strike a balance between work and rest every day in class. However, they did not seem to have given up on the momentum of cultivating desperately. His moves were getting more and more practiced, his body was getting stronger and stronger, and his appearance was becoming less and less like a sword cultivator. A few months later, during an internal competition that he organized, Siyu, who was originally the smallest, suddenly threw away the sword in her hand. She clenched her fist and with a loud bang, smashed the stone wall in front of her. Lone Moon, looking at the girl's bulging biceps, his heart skipped a beat. He finally understood what was wrong. This strength, this fighting style, this fist wind filled with killing intent. How was this a sword cultivator? This was a body cultivator. For all, Ngungro, damn it, he told them to practice their swordsmanship, not to train their physique. What the hell were these girls who were getting more and more ferocious and didn't like to use their swords and only liked to settle things with their fists? What about the sword techniques he taught? Were they eaten? Why do I feel like the spirit chi is getting stronger and stronger today? Siyu, who had won the competition, suddenly frowned. Oh no. Junior sister, you're about to form your core. Yu Hong was shocked and shouted, quick, sit down. Concentrate on forming your core. In an instant, the surrounding spirit chi surged and surged towards Siyu. She leveled up? The worst thing to do when forming a core is to be interrupted. Everyone step back. Lone Moon took a step forward and set up a few arrays to gather spirit chi around her. Then he led the rest of them to retreat tens of meters away. The sky immediately darkened. Thunderclouds quickly gathered in the sky. The spirit chi in the middle of the martial arts arena rose steadily. Faintly, the power of heaven and earth could be felt. This was nothing to Lone Moon, who was at the soul formation stage, but to the disciples below the golden core stage, it was a great power. Just as he was about to set up an isolation array, he turned around and saw that 4 or 5 people seemed to feel something from the power of heaven and earth. They immediately sat down and meditated on the spot. Their cultivation levels also advanced by 1 level. Damn, this is possible. It's over. 1 core formation and 4 or 5 of them advanced by a small level. They already had the foundation of body cultivation and could no longer turn back. Damn it, did they have to be so tragic? He was clearly teaching sword cultivators, so why did all of them become body cultivators one by one? Sigma Q. P. What was body cultivation? Body cultivators were a bunch of people who used their fists to do the talking. There was no technique to speak of. They were boorish men who specialized in body cultivation. Weren't you all a bunch of girls? Why did you have to be like those demons and beasts and walk such a cruel path? What was so good about body cultivators with rough skin and thick flesh? In the entire 3 Azure realms, there were not even many male body cultivators, not to mention female body cultivators. What exactly was it that made you all so depressed? What was it that made you so depressed? He had a vague feeling that in the future the entire sect would be filled with diamond Barbies. Damn it, I'm so tired. I want to resign. This time, Siyu's lightning tribulation lasted for 4 whole hours. Each bolt was heavier than the one before. It was not much weaker than the lightning tribulation of the nascent soul realm. Body cultivators walked the path of tempering their bodies. Each bolt of lightning would forcefully crush the victim's meridians and then reconstruct them with spirit chi. Thus, compared to other cultivators, the lightning tribulation of body cultivators was especially cruel and frightening. There were 81 bolts of lightning tribulation, and each bolt was a rebirth. There were almost no body cultivators in the entire 3 Azure realms. Even if there were, they would be struck to death by the lightning tribulation during their first core formation. The human body was not as strong as that of demons and beasts, but Sister Siyu was able to withstand it. Even after 81 bolts of lightning tribulation, she was only left with a bloody frame. But she still gritted her teeth and completed her core formation. The thunderclouds dissipated and spirit rain fell from the sky. All of it dripped onto the victim. Sister Siyu's body then began to regrow, and she slowly regained her human appearance. But she still did not have the strength to get up. After half a month, she finally recovered and stabilized her cultivation level. Even the others' cultivation levels increased. Although they did not form their core formation like Siyu, they at least advanced a small level. Body cultivators had become an unchangeable fact. After realizing this, Lone Moon wanted to tear Shin Ying apart with his own hands. Look at what this cheat has done. This was all because of what she said back then, 1 man can defeat 10 men. That was why everyone went down the wrong path. Compensate my students. But the strange thing was that no one was against becoming body cultivators. Instead they were surprised. In fact, from the 2nd day onwards, they happily threw away their swords and began to simply practice their fists and bodies. It was as if they had finally broken through some kind of window paper. Lone Moon, who had always thought that he was leading sword cultivators, Mother Kerr. Was he the only one who thought that they wanted to become sword cultivators? Brainless fans. If they had such ideas, why didn't they just go to heaven? They were getting old and they didn't care anymore. Lone Moon was about to throw away his responsibilities and quit, but he unexpectedly received a message that immediately suppressed his thoughts of resigning. Chapter 68. Sect Competition? Shen Ying's hand that was holding the pastry paused. What's that? It's equivalent to a competition of skills between sects, Lone Moon explained. All sects and aristocratic families in the Upper Azure world can participate. There are 3 groups based on cultivation level: Qi Refinement, Foundation Establishment, and Golden Core. The top 3 will be chosen. The organizers will sponsor the prizes. Upper Azure World Olympics? You could say that. He nodded. It's just that the sect competition is only held once every 10 years. This time it's in 3 days. Oh. Shining looked disinterested. Can we not go? No. Lone Moon glared at her. I went to Upper Azure City yesterday to register for the competition under the name of Invincible Sect. This competition is organized by the Yin family, one of the 4 aristocratic families. The venue is Yin Tian City. We have to set off tomorrow. As she spoke, she handed over the competition token. Shining did not take it. She glanced at the token with the word competition written on it. Why must we participate? We don't have many people. Wouldn't it be better to stay at home and eat? You're asking me why? Lone Moon exploded. Don't you have any F***king idea of the situation our sect is in? Including the 3 of us, there are only 12 people. It's been a whole year and only 12 people. You even made them freaking body cultivators. Does it look like a sect at all? 12 is not bad. Just enough to clean the house. Good my ass. Have you ever seen a sect with so few people? Whenever he thought of the 9 future diamond Barbies, his liver would ache. Okay? If we don't do some advertising and make them popular, we'll never be able to recruit other disciples. What's more, I've tested the skills of the 9 of them. Although it's a little difficult to challenge someone of a higher level, their foundations are solid. He gritted his teeth and spat out these 2 words. Anyway, they have a lot of advantages when competing against people of the same level. I don't have high expectations for this competition. It's good enough if one of them can get into the top 10. At least let people know the strength of our invincible sect. Oh, so they're going to be advertising. That's why they're not the only ones participating. In order to prevent people from looking down on them, all of us have to go, including you. With that, he grabbed her hand and shoved the token into her hand. You'd better wake up early tomorrow or else. His expression darkened as he said, cancel next month's food allowance. Shining stared blankly at him. Her lazy demeanor changed instantly, and she gripped her competition card tightly. Father Nyo, you're absolutely right. He turned to the person beside him and said seriously, Chef, for the future of the sect, let's work overtime tonight. Hurry up and prepare some cold dishes, pastries, fast food, and fruits for the journey. We must not let our Olympic athletes starve. Understand? Yes, Master. No problem, Master. Lone Moon, at the end of the day, he still couldn't forget to eat. Convex, utensil. Yin Tian City was located in the east of the Upper Azure world and was considered the largest immortal city in the east. It took Shining and the rest a whole day to reach the city before the sky turned dark. The Yin family was indeed the wealthiest of the 4 big families. From the moment they flashed their competition tokens, someone led them to an independent courtyard specially designed for the competitors to rest in. Although the courtyard was not as spacious as Invincible Sect's, it was more than enough for more than 10 people to rest. What's more, each sect was independent. According to Lone Moon's inquiries, there were more than 1,000 sects participating in the sect competition. It was clear how rich the Yin family was. The competition will only start tomorrow. Everyone rest well tonight. Lone Moon scanned the 9 girls in front of him. Perhaps it was their first time participating in such a formal competition. They all seemed rather nervous. He could only comfort them in a low voice. You're not bad at all. Just relax. It'll be good if you can get into the top 10. If you can't, just admit defeat. There's no need to fight. The few of them nodded. Whether intentionally or not, they glanced at Shining at the side. Their eyes lit up. Lone Moon also subconsciously turned to look at her. Shining finished eating a fruit and looked up. Instantly she saw a group of people staring at her. She choked. Cough. What's the matter? The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He glared at her. Don't you have something to give them? No. What? Master, it's a defensive bell. I Ching took out a string of small bells that looked exactly the same as the one he had given her. I refined this defensive Dharma artifact last night. It can block a full blow from a nascent soul cultivator. Although it's a righteous sect competition, we can't guarantee that there won't be any narrow-minded people who will try to kill you, Lone Moon explained. Bring this defensive Dharma artifact with you during the competition just in case. Only then did Xin-Ing remember that this was the sect's welfare that Father Nyo had mentioned yesterday. She hurriedly took it, opened it and distributed it to everyone. The girl in red. Come little red. Do your best. Yes, sect master. She accepted it happily. The girl in white. Little white, do your best. Yes, sect master. She accepted it happily. The girl in blue. Little blue, do your best. Yes, sect master. She accepted it happily. The second girl in white. Little rabbit, do your best. Yes, sect master. She accepted it happily. Lone Moon. He had already given up on a certain someone's method of recording names. Xin-Ing continued to distribute the bells. After she was done, she coughed and said in a rare serious tone, "The most important thing is to participate. As long as you work hard, the ranking is not important. After all, friendship comes first, competition comes second. I have high hopes for all of you." Everyone looked excited as they carefully kept the bells that Xin-Ing had distributed into their arms, as if they had received some rare treasure. They were so excited that they could jump up and down if they were not careful. Their eyes lit up instantly, and they bowed to her in unison. Everyone began to express their determination. "Thank you, Sect Master. We will work hard. For Sect Master, for Invincible Sect. Don't worry, Sect Master. We will definitely win glory for the sect. We will bring Sect Master's blessings to participate in the competition. May Sect Master be with us." Lone Moon, I Ching. He was the one who led the team and I Ching was the one who refined the weapons. What did this have to do with Xin-Ing? Why do you all look so excited after receiving gifts from your idols? And it's easy. Because there were too few people. Invincible Sect only registered for the Foundation Establishment and Golden Core stages of the competition. Among them, Yu Hong, Siyu and 2 other girls were in the Golden Core group. The other 5 entered the Foundation Establishment group. Lone Moon's goal was to enter the top 10 in the Foundation Establishment group. After all, among the 5 people in the Foundation Establishment group, there were 2 who had perfected Foundation Establishment. Among the 4 people in the Golden Core group, other than Yu Hong who was in the mid-stage Golden Core, the other 3 were in the early-stage Golden Core. Siyu had just formed her core. It was still difficult to stand out from a group of late-stage Golden Core cultivators, or even perfected Golden Core cultivators. Although they were body cultivators who were stronger than sword cultivators, they had only learned sword techniques in the past year. They had not fought with anyone before, so they lacked experience. In fact, they probably wouldn't even bother to use those feminine spells from before. Chapter 69. The group arrived at the competition venue on time. When they entered, there were already many cultivators from various sects gathered inside. It was a sea of people. At a rough glance, there were probably tens of thousands of people. They did not know if it was a coincidence or not, but the disciples of Book Luo sect arrived before them. Coincidentally, this sect was all female cultivators. There were fewer female cultivators than male cultivators participating in the competition. Including the 9 from Invincible Sect, it was especially obvious that there were many female cultivators in this area. At first they did not care until the discussions grew louder. Along the way more and more eyes gathered on the 9 of them, accompanied by more and more undisguised pointing. Look, their faces are so disfigured. How dare they come out? Yes, all of them are so ugly. I have never seen such ugly cultivators before. Could they be fiendish cultivators? And they are standing beside the disciples of Book Luo sect. Everyone knows that Book Luo sect specializes in producing fairy-like female cultivators. That's right. What sect are they? Why do they only accept ugly people? The discussions around them grew louder. The 9 of them subconsciously lowered their heads, embarrassed and annoyed. Intentionally or unintentionally, they covered the scars on their faces. The morale that had just entered the arena dissipated instantly. Lonman's expression darkened. Yu Hong and the others' foundations were damaged. Although Invincible Sect had many spirit herbs, these alone were not enough to heal them. Therefore there would be some hidden injuries. Although it did not affect their cultivation much, their disfigured appearances were never repaired. He and I Ching were already at soul formation and did not care much about appearances. Moreover, there was a chance to reconstruct one's body during nascent soul formation. Therefore, few high-level cultivators cared about appearances. Therefore, they had never thought of solving this problem. Moreover, they were already used to their appearances and did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. He did not expect that they would be looked down upon by some low-level disciples because of such insignificant matters in this sect competition. He was a little angry, but he could not make everyone shut up. He could only release his soul formation suppressive force to warn the people around him. He comforted them and said, "Focus on the competition. Don't worry about anything else." Yes. Everyone nodded, but their expressions did not improve. Lone Moon sighed. Seeing that the competition was about to start, he said, "We can't stay here for long. Don't worry, we'll be watching you from outside. Good luck." With that, he gestured for Yi Qing and Shining to leave. They had just taken 2 steps when Shining, who was in front of them, paused. "What are you doing?" Shining did not reply. Instead, she suddenly turned and walked back to the 9 of them. "Well, I said something wrong yesterday." The 9 of them were taken aback and raised their heads. "Our Invincible Sect doesn't have many friends anyway. Don't worry about friendship first." Her eyes turned cold as she said word by word, "So, you don't have to give me any face. Just kill him. You are indeed not fairies, but you can be everyone's nightmare." A while later, yes. Sect leader. 9. His fighting spirit was burning fiercely. I Ching. Master is right. Lone Moon. A brainless fan. Every sect competition was the liveliest event in the Upper Azure world. The competition actually only lasted for 3 days. Today was the preliminary round, mainly to select the top 50 disciples of each cultivation level. The format of the competition was simple. Each cultivation level was divided into a group of 100 people. The last one standing would advance. Because it was the first day, all the sects had come to watch the competition. A high floating platform was filled with experts from all the sections. The people on the highest level were from the 4 big families. Although most of the top 3 disciples were from the aristocratic families, this competition concerned the reputation of the aristocratic families. The patriarchs of the aristocratic families were all present, accompanied by traveling immortals. There are many more sects participating in this competition than in previous years. Yu Haiheng, the patriarch of the Yu family, frowned as he looked at the crowd below. "Of course. I heard that many new sects have been established these few years." Yi Feng, the patriarch of the Yi family, touched the 10th level demon beast lying beside him and smiled. "Fortunately, Yintian City is big enough. Even if there were twice as many people, it would not be a problem. You are indeed the wealthy Yin family. Why don't I see the patriarch of the Yin family?" Yi Feng looked around and realized that the host, the Yin family, was not here. Perhaps he has gone to make arrangements for the competition. With so many sects here this time, he must be very busy. The frown on Yu Haiyan's face deepened. He swept a disdainful glance at the experts from the various sects seated below him. He didn't seem to have any misgivings at all. The competition is getting worse with each passing year. All kinds of shabby sects dare to participate. Even the Yin family doesn't restrict the number of participating sections. Yi Feng laughed dryly and did not reply. He had heard that the patriarch of the Yu family was arrogant and never paid attention to the occasion when he spoke. Yu Haiheng, however, thought that Yi Feng was tacitly agreeing. His gaze became even more contemptuous. Suddenly he noticed something and snorted coldly. "Look over there. There are even mortals here. Where do they think they are?" "Just anyone." Clang. Before he could finish speaking, the patriarch of the Shen Yuan family, Shen Yuanyu, who had been silent all this time, suddenly felt his legs go weak. He slipped off his chair and fell to the ground. Everyone jumped in fright. "Brother Shen Yuan? How could a soul formation expert fall on the ground?" Yi Feng was a little confused, but Shen Yuanyu had no intention of paying attention to him. Shen Yuanyu stood up in a flash and hurriedly ran in the direction of the mortal that Yu Haiyan had pointed out. Even the traveling immortals of the Shen Yuan family immediately followed. They looked so anxious that it was as if they were rushing to reincarnate. Great immortal Yu, why are you here?" Shen Yuanyu only dared to believe his eyes when he reached Shen Ying's side. Oh my God, it wasn't an illusion. It really was this ancestor. He suddenly felt his phantom limbs hurt. Greetings, great immortal. The traveling immortal Xian Yuanyong hurriedly bowed, trembling with fear. Shining was stunned. She looked at the two people who had suddenly appeared and habitually waved her hand in greeting. Hey, good morning. You. She paused and tilted her head. Who are you? The two of them, the traveling immortal from the Xian Yuan family, Lonman's mouth twitched. He pointed at Xian Yuanyong and turned to look at the person beside him. As for this person, he should be the patriarch of the Xian Yuan family, right? Oh. Shining was stunned. The vegetable family that snatched the radish. The two of them. Vegetable family? What the hell? She might as well not explain. There were many misunderstandings the last time. Thank you, great immortal, for showing mercy. Xian Yuanyu smiled kindly. I wonder why great immortal is here this time? Competition. Competition? Her? Who the hell can beat you? We have already established a sect called Invincible Sect. This time we are bringing our disciples to compete, Lone Moon explained. Xian Yuanyu nodded and hurriedly turned to lead the way. In that case, the competition is about to begin. Would Great Immortal like to have a seat and watch the competition together? Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look. They looked at the high platform that was full of people before replying, Thank you, Patriarch Xian Yuan. It's my duty, my duty. Great Immortal, please. Thus, the Yu and Yi clans saw the Xian Yuan clan's patriarch respectfully lead the mortal that Yu Haiyan had just looked down onto his previous seat with a natural expression. Two soul formation cultivators stood beside him. Even Xian Yuanyu and Xian Yuanyong stood straight at the side, leaving an empty seat. They had no intention of sitting down at the side at all. The patriarch of the Yu family was shocked. He looked at the two of them as if they were crazy. Was the Xian Yuan family crazy? But after all, this was another family's business. It was not appropriate for him to ask. He could only snort and turn his head. Chapter 70. Yi Feng, on the other hand, was curious about the little girl sitting lazily beside him. Who was this girl? Why was the Xian Yuan family treating her so politely? Just as he was about to ask, his hand was suddenly pricked. He looked down and saw that the 10th level demon beast that was lying quietly beside him suddenly had its hair standing on end. All four of its claws were extended and its entire body began to tremble slightly, as if it had encountered something terrifying. A Shuayin? What was wrong with it? The sudden movement made even the girl beside him turn to look at the beast on the ground. A cat? This is a roaring lion beast, he explained. Oh. Shining looked at it again. She had never seen a small animal before. Could it be eaten? The roaring lion beast trembled even more violently. Stop trembling, you're going to bump into someone, she suddenly reminded it. The roaring lion beast froze instantly as if it had been petrified. Yifeng's eyes widened in disbelief. Miss, you're also good at taming beasts? I've never learned it before. That's strange. Shuayin has never listened to anyone before. Is it sick? It's possible. He asked casually, Miss, what illness do you think it has? Canine plague? The first day of the preliminaries was actually just a formality. It was similar to the opening ceremony. The most important thing was the finals on the third day. Therefore, the experts from the various sects only watched for 2 to 4 hours on the specially created high platform before they began to leave one after another. Even the Yu and Yi families had already left the stands. Shining and the others waited until Yu Hong and the other 8 had finished competing before preparing to leave. Fortunately, all 9 of them had advanced to the second round of competition the next day. The 2 people from the Xian Yuan family who had been following them accompanied the 3 of them to watch the entire competition. They even politely sent them back to the courtyard where they were resting. Little Missy, you're finally back. The moment they entered the house, Radish, dressed like a piece of jade, pounced over. Shining stepped aside out of habit, only to see the piece of jade hit Lone Moon who was behind her. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Why the hell did you turn into a human again? Didn't you say you would stay in the pit obediently? Che. Radish took a step back in disdain and slapped Lone Moon's hand away. Ugly, don't touch me. The veins on Lone Moon's head were about to explode. Damn it, if you have the guts, why don't you walk on your own in the future? Don't turn into a carrot and hug my leg. I didn't even complain that you were heavy. Do you think I'm willing? If it wasn't for little Missy not letting it hug her, it wouldn't have been willing. The more Radish thought about it, the more wronged it felt. It turned its head and wanted to ask for a hug. Little Missy, he bullied me. Scram. Vegetable dishes had no right to speak. Woo woo woo. It's 1,000 leaves vegetation spirit? Xian Yuanyu stared at Radish in shock. It had transformed so quickly. The Xian Yuan family had worked hard for tens of thousands of years, but they still couldn't make the vegetation spirit in their family take human form. They even raised it for a while before it died. The way the two of them looked at Radish became more and more passionate. Radish hid behind Shining and threatened them angrily. Pui, get lost, ugly thing. Don't even think about coveting my pure body. The two of them. Were the mouths of spirit monsters that transformed from plants also poisonous? Cough, great immortal. Xian Yuanyu retracted his gaze and scanned the crowd. He turned to Shining and said, "Congratulations to all the disciples of your sect for entering the second round of the competition. You are indeed the disciples of Great Immortal. All of you are outstanding." Of course. Before Shining could reply, Radish answered proudly, "All the big sisters in our family are very powerful." In this year, Radish had become very familiar with everyone. After all, they were the ones who watered it. In its heart, it had a ranking. Shining was first, it was second, and the other little missy were third. Its natural enemy was Yi Qing, the chef who often cut carrots. As for Lone Moon, Pui? Of course the disciples of Great Immortal are powerful. Xian Yuanyu nodded repeatedly. He looked at the crowd again and continued, "But, when I looked at your spirit bones, it seems like your foundation is damaged. It seems to be an old problem. Forgive me for being blunt, but this kind of damage should be healed as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will affect your future cultivation. You have a way." Lone Moon looked at him in surprise. Xian Yuanyu nodded. "My Xian Yuan family has always been good at alchemy. I have some achievements in the field of alchemy. Their condition is actually not a big deal. They only need an 8th grade vitality pill to recover. Their damaged appearance can also be recovered. I just happened to refine a batch of vitality pills a few days ago. I can give it to your sect." Everyone looked delighted. Xian Yuanyu immediately took out a palm-sized bottle and handed it to Lone Moon. He added, "They have not formed their nascent souls. It's better to repair their foundation sooner rather than later." Lone Moon took the pill and his expression darkened. He asked, "How many spirit stones does this cost?" After all, Xian Yuanyu had caused trouble at his place. He could not take his things for free. "No need, no need." Xian Yuanyu hurriedly shook his head and said sincerely, "I just want to build a good relationship with your sect. I have no other intentions. I have no request." Even if he had a request, he would not dare to accept it. Moreover, he was one of the 4 big families. He did not lack spirit stones unless, he looked at Radish uncontrollably. Lone Moon also understood. Instantly, the gazes of more than 10 people turned to a certain vegetable. Radish trembled under their gazes. It subconsciously crossed its arms and took a step back. "What? I sell my skills, not my body." "Everyone, Radish, bloom a few flowers," Shining said. She could not take his things for free. "No." Radish shook its head forcefully and looked at Shining with an aggrieved expression. "My flowers only bloom for little Missy to see. Who wants your dandelions?" Seeing that Radish was determined not to submit, Shining turned to Yi Qing. "Chef, let's have radish stew with pork ribs tonight." "Yes, master." Radish's face paled. It was about to cry. I'll bloom, all right?" Only then did it walk out pitifully. Then, it lifted the shirt on the lower half of its body. "Holy shit, what are you doing?" Lone Moon rushed forward and grabbed Radish's hand just as it was about to take off its pants. He waved at the shocked girls. "All of you turn around. Turn around." Yi Qing also subconsciously covered Xin Ying's eyes. "Why are you acting like a hooligan all of a sudden? Even if you're angry, you can't do that." "Who's acting like a hooligan? Don't you want flowers? How are you going to bloom if you don't take them off?" "Blooming and taking off pants, wait." Lone Moon paused. He suddenly remembered something. Flowers seem to be a plant's, what? So he really took off his pants to bloom? Lone Moon, Yi Qing, Shining, Xian Yuanyu. Why did he suddenly not want it? Chapter 71. Early the next morning, Xian Yuanyu came to invite Shining to watch the competition. Behind him were a few disciples of his own family. They were all very polite. Compared to the family master's politeness towards Shining, the disciples seemed to be more respectful towards Yi Qing and Lone Moon. It was probably because they were beating different people. Shining sat calmly on the highest level of the spectator stand at the same place and seat. Today was the second day of the competition. It was mainly a duel to determine the top 10 of each level. There were many disciples from the 4 big families. It was almost certain that they would make it to the top 10. That was why the family masters of the Yin and Yu families did not come. There were many empty seats on the high platform. Shen Yu and Yu finally had a place to sit. Apart from the few of them, the family master of the Yi family, Yi Feng, was also present. However, he came alone with no one beside him. Shining looked at him curiously. Yi Feng immediately understood what she meant. He smiled and said, "Shuayin seems to be sick. No matter how I persuaded it, it wouldn't go out today. I left it in the yard." "So it's the canine plague? Fellow Taoist, you seem to be very interested in spirit beasts?" She nodded. "Yes, I quite like small animals." She liked to eat. "Looks like you're a kindred spirit as well." Yi Feng was delighted. The art of taming beasts required one to spend a long time with spirit beasts. Sometimes, in order to gain the beast's trust, one had to live with it. That was why few female cultivators liked the art of taming beasts, especially high-level spirit beasts like Shuayin. Now that he had finally met someone special, his interest was immediately piqued. Although most spirit beasts look scary, after spending a long time with them, you'll find that beasts are actually more affectionate than humans. My Shuayin is an example. Once it recognizes its master, it will stay by his side forever. However, people value their appearance and think that beasts are too cruel and terrifying. They're not cruel. She suddenly thought of a certain rabbit. Although it's a little timid, it's quite loyal. I like it very much. "Ha ha, well said, Mississippi. Compared to humans, spirit beasts are indeed more loyal and reliable." Yi Feng had not met a female cultivator who liked taming beasts for a long time. She seemed to be a high-level cultivator who hid her strength well. He immediately wanted to make friends with her. "I am Yi Feng, the family master of the Yi family. How should I address you, miss?" "Shining," she answered. Then, after some thought, she added, "It's the sect master of Invincible Sect." Invincible Sect. Yi Feng paused for a moment. After thinking for a long time, he still could not remember what sect it was, so he did not pay much attention to it. "I see that fellow Taoist Shen's spirit chi is restrained, so you must be someone with high cultivation. If you are interested in the future, we can go to the shore of Mirage Sea to look for some high-level spirit beasts. Rumor has it that there are many spirit beasts that can't even be found in the 3 Azure Realms." "Really?" Shining was delighted. "Is it delicious?" "Ah." Yi Feng was stunned. What did he mean by delicious? After thinking about it carefully, he thought that she was referring to the taming techniques. The higher the rank of the spiritual beast, the harder it is to contract and tame it. "I'm sure it won't be easily tamed. By the way, fellow cultivator Shin seems to be someone who has done quite a bit of research on beasts. I wonder if you have any special methods to deal with those arrogant spirit beasts, especially those above the 10th level, who are unwilling to easily form contracts with them." "Yes." Shining nodded. "Really?" Yi Feng was delighted. "What is it?" "A beating will do." Yi Feng was stunned. But she continued in a serious tone, "Little animals are not obedient. Most of them are spoiled. A beating will make them obedient. If that doesn't work, they can still be eaten." "What the hell?" "Master, the competition is over," Yi Qing suddenly said. Only then did Xin Ying realize that the Golden Core and Foundation Establishment preliminary competitions had ended. Today's competition ended especially quickly. There were not many people left on the stage. The top 10 candidates had already been decided. Fortunately, Invincible Sect not only had 2 people from the Foundation Establishment group in the top 10, but they also had 2 people from the Golden Core group. One was Yu Hong and the other was Siyu. Out of the 9 of them, 4 of them had made it to the finals. This was definitely a pleasant surprise. Lone Moon, who was at the side, was grinning from ear to ear. Lone Moon, who was standing at the side, was grinning so widely that his mouth was crooked. "That person. Goodbye." Shening hurriedly stopped chatting and turned to walk down the stage. "Take care, fellow cultivator Shen," Yi Feng replied in a daze. The method she mentioned just now was probably a joke, right? It had to be, right? 4 people had made it to the top 10, and 2 of them were in the finals of the Golden Core stage. Lone Moon was the happiest. This year's hard work had not gone to waste. Although the direction of his cultivation was a little off, the results were still gratifying. He suddenly had confidence in the sect again. There were thousands of sects participating this time, especially people from the 4 aristocratic families. They were all the cream of the crop of the younger generation. Which one of them was not a talent carefully nurtured by the aristocratic families? Among these 10 people, apart from those from Invincible Sect, the others were almost all disciples of the aristocratic families. As a result, the 4 names of invincible sect were especially obvious. He could even feel that on the way back to the courtyard, the other sects were looking at them differently. Some were fearful, some were envious, and some were shocked. But they did not look down on them like before. Lonman's goal of advertising had been achieved. He could almost see the sea of people queuing in front of him the next time he went to Upper Azure Town to recruit disciples. At the thought of this, he could not contain his excitement. This time he had to watch over the new disciples and prevent any possibility of contact with Shining. This time he was going to nurture a group of pure sword cultivators. After returning to the courtyard, Lone Moon praised the 9 people one by one, especially the 4 who had advanced. He also comforted their nervous hearts for the upcoming finals. He had thought that they would at least be excited, but they did not respond to his praise at all. They only looked at Shining as if they were expecting something. Even a certain someone who had a screw loose could feel his concentration. She was stunned for a moment, and after a while she turned her head and complimented him. "Not bad, keep it up." "Yes, Sect Master." 9 only then did they respond loudly as if their acupoints had been unlocked. Everyone immediately burst into laughter. Lone Moon, son of AB***, Shen Yuanyu requests to see Great Immortal Shen. I wonder if it is convenient for Great Immortal? A familiar voice suddenly came from outside the door. Before Shining could respond, Radish rushed out with a long face. He glared angrily at the newcomer and said, "What are you doing here? Do you want to ravage my body again?" The corner of Shen Yuanyu's mouth twitched. He seemed to have thought of something and felt a mouthful of blood welling up. Looking at Shining, who came out behind him, he had no choice but to swallow it down. He felt that after what happened last night, he had doubts about his Tao of pill cultivation. He could no longer look directly at the herbs for refining pills. Chapter 72. Vegetarian Patriarch, what's the matter? Shining asked. Straight face, what the hell was Vegetarian Patriarch? It felt like the way Great Immortal addressed him was constantly changing. Shin. Great Immortal Shin. He took a step forward and calmed himself down before remembering his purpose. I heard that 4 disciples of Invincible Sect have entered the finals. I'm here to congratulate your sect. You're too kind, Patriarch. Lone Moon took a step forward and smiled. Didn't the Xin Yuan family also have 5 disciples in the finals? We'd like to congratulate you as well, Patriarch. How can my disciples compare to Great Immortal's disciples? Shen Yuanyu smiled even more politely and began to flatter each other. He then took out a bottle of elixirs and handed it over. By the way, this is a spirit condensation elixir used to nourish spirit chi. It's not a big elixir, but it will be more effective when used with the previous bottle of vitality elixir. It's suitable for your disciples. Take it as a congratulation to your sect for entering the finals. Lone Moon looked at the bottle and found that it was indeed a 5th grade pill. He did not reject it and accepted the goodwill. Thank you, Patriarch Shen Yuan. If you need any rare herbs in the future, feel free to come to Invincible Sect. We'll do our best. With that said, he looked at the arrogant Radish. Shen Yuanyu looked over as well. Everyone else subconsciously turned to look at Radish. What? You want me to bloom? An image flashed across their minds. Everyone's mouths twitched. The situation was extremely awkward. What parent? You're looking for me for something, right? Shining spoke up, breaking the strange atmosphere. Shen Yuanyu paused. Indeed? He was silent for a while as if he did not know what to say. After a while he said, it's like this. The patriarch of the Yin family is curious about Great Immortal. He heard that Great Immortal was here, so he asked me to come and see if I could meet you. The Yin family? Shining paused. The Yin family is the organizer of this competition. Thinking of this, Shen Yuanyu could not help but grit his teeth and complain about the sly old foxes of the Yin family. The Shen Yuan family was one of the 4 aristocratic families. Their every move was watched by all the sects in the Upper Azure world. It was no secret that he had been overly friendly to Shining these 2 days. Presumably, the 4 great families were now guessing her identity. The Yin family was no exception, but he hadn't expected that unlike the other 2 families, Yin Feng would directly seek him out and ask for an introduction. It was obvious that no matter who the other party was, they had to get to know him first. The Yin family was indeed the biggest profiteer in the Upper Azure world. They were faster and more decisive than others. However, because of the relationship between the 2 families, he had no choice but to brace himself and mention it to the great deity. Why does he want to see me? Shining was confused. Shen Yuan froze for a moment before replying, maybe? I just admire the great immortal's elegance and want to get to know you. When? After the finals tomorrow. Oh, so troublesome. After the match, she just wanted to go home and sleep. If it's not convenient for great immortal, another day is fine. Don't worry, I didn't reveal any information about you to him. Afraid that she would be angry, Xian Yuanyu immediately added, I'll inform Patriarch Yin to cancel tomorrow's banquet. A banquet? Xining suddenly perked up. She grabbed his hand and said, in order not to make things difficult for you, I've decided to go. Tell me what time. What time? Where is the venue? Is there a dress code? How are the dishes? Xian Yuanyu, Lone Moon, I Ching, the third day. The finals of the sect competition were finally here. Compared to the first day, there were more people watching the competition this time. Even the 4 big family clans were here, including the host, the Yin family. The finals would be a duel and the winner would enter the next round. Then, one person would draw lots to decide who would get a bye, and the top 3 would be decided. Lone Moon had already told the 4 people who had advanced to the finals last night that they had already achieved their goal of entering the top 10. There was no need to work too hard, especially for the 2 Golden Core cultivators. The other people in the top 10 were all disciples of the perfected Golden Core aristocratic families. The Foundation establishment cultivators fared better, but after a series of battles, only one of them entered the top 5 and was defeated. It was already a pleasant surprise to be able to get 5th place. But they did not expect the Golden Core group to be even more pleasantly surprised. They actually advanced to the finals of the top 3. What's more, this person was not the mid-stage Golden Core Yu Hong, but Sister Siyu, who had just formed her core and looked the weakest. Lone Moon was a little confused. He did not see her fight just now. How did she suddenly enter the top 3? After asking around, he found out that it was because, got a bye? Yiqing was stunned. He did not expect this to be the reason. I heard that one of the 10 people got into a fight last night and was seriously injured. That's why he withdrew from the competition. She was lucky again. She got a bye twice. That was why she did not have to do anything and directly advanced to the finals of the top 3. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look. They were both speechless. Sister Siyu's luck was really unparalleled. Sister Little Green is up, Xining suddenly said as she pointed to the arena. Indeed, the arena had been cleared. 2 figures, one green and one blue, appeared. The one in green was Siyu. Her opponent was a perfected Golden Core cultivator. Judging from his aura, he was already half a step into the nascent soul stage. The 2 of them had no choice but to focus on the competition. Yu Hong was still fine. She was at the mid-stage Golden Core stage. But Siyu had to fight. This was going to be a tough battle. Lone Moon had already thought about how he was going to comfort the girl later so that he wouldn't hurt her confidence. Yin Yuanfei of the Yin family seeks your guidance. The figure in blue cupped his fists and bowed. Siyu gripped her sword tightly. She was clearly nervous. She looked up at the highest point of the spectator stand. Then, as if gathering her courage, she took a deep breath and shouted, Invincible sect, Siyu, please guide me, fellow Taoist. The next moment, the 2 figures flashed at the same time and began to fight. Yin Yuanfei had a rare thunder spirit root. Every move he made was accompanied by lightning. In addition, his cultivation level was high. In a short while, the entire arena was filled with the sound of thunder. Siyu had no place to stand. Siyu could only dodge. At first, she was a little flustered. But after a while, she calmed down. While dodging, she used her sword to split the lightning around her. In a short while, besides the lightning, there was also sword chi. Yin Yuanfei was stunned for a moment, and then there was a hint of admiration in his eyes. He originally thought that this junior sister was lucky because she always drew a blank every time, so she had the chance to fight him. But he never expected that she really had some ability. Her cultivation level was so much lower than his, but she could still deal with his lightning so easily. She was indeed worthy of being in the top 10. Could it be that she was a sword cultivator? His heart sank. His expression became more serious. Fellow Taoist, your sword technique is amazing. Chapter 73. He mobilized his spirit chi and did not hold back. He attacked with all his might. Suddenly the ground was filled with lightning. In a short while, a long dragon formed by lightning appeared in the field. As the opponent moved, rocks flew everywhere and lightning filled the air. It charged towards Siyu with a shocking momentum. Siyu was shocked. It was too late to retreat. She could only leap into the air. She retracted her sword chi and formed hundreds of spirit swords around her, blocking the lightning that was everywhere. But her cultivation level was lower than her opponent's. She could only defend for a short while. The longer she fought, the more spirit chi she used. In less than half an hour, her spirit chi was exhausted. Occasionally, lightning would break through the sword array and hit her body. The sword array was on the verge of collapsing. It was over. Yin Yuanfei heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to give his opponent the final blow and win the match, he faintly felt a chill on his back. His rich battle experience made him subconsciously use his sword to block the attack. He felt a weight on his hand. Siyu, who had been trapped in the lightning, suddenly appeared behind him. He looked back. There was no longer anyone in the sword array. An illusion array. He retreated in shock. He did not expect her to know array formations. His palms felt numb. Were all sword cultivators this strong? He became even more cautious as he fought. The two of them fought for another 2 hours. Although they did not gain an advantage, Siyu was only at the early golden core stage. She was slowly losing ground. Even her movements to dodge the lightning were becoming slower and slower. Yin Yuanfei heaved a sigh of relief. The lightning he summoned became more and more concentrated. Siyu frowned. Although she was not satisfied, she could not win this battle. She used up the last bit of her spirit chi. The defense around Siyu instantly disappeared. The lightning that filled the sky immediately struck her body. Just as she was about to give up, a bolt of lightning struck her in the chest, and something slid out from inside. Her expression changed. She hurriedly tried to pick it up, but it was too late. A bell fell to the ground with a ding and was smashed into pieces by the lightning. Her face instantly turned deathly pale. She no longer cared about the lightning around her. Her eyes widened as she stared at the ground. My ring. Ring? Yin Yuanfei stopped his attacks right away when he saw She had completely stopped resisting, and then he cupped his fists and said, "Fellow Taoist, thank you for letting me win." He thought she hadn't heard him clearly, so he said, "Fellow Taoist, your spiritual aura is already exhausted. There's no need to continue this fight." He kindly reminded her to admit defeat. Fellow Taoist. Fellow Taoist, why are you? He took a step forward, but before he could finish speaking, the person who was in a daze suddenly turned around with bloodshot eyes, and a murderous aura rushed toward him. "I'll kill you, bastard." Before he could react, he saw the other party's originally exhausted body suddenly bulge with strong muscles. Even her sleeves were torn. Her originally petite figure suddenly grew several times taller. A pair of eyes that seemed to be burning with monstrous anger pierced her body like a sharp sword. "You. Give. Back. My. Give. Danger." 2 words immediately appeared in his mind. He wanted to retreat, but it was too late. He only felt his collar tighten, and he was directly thrown to the ground. In the next moment, the raindrop-like fists landed on his face, accompanied by a series of questions. "Return my gift. Return my gift. Return my gift." Each punch was heavier than the one before, and each punch was more irresistible than the one before. After a few breaths, Yin Yuanfei completely lost consciousness. Only the sound of punches could be heard in the arena. There was dead silence. What did they see? Body. Body cultivator. A woman. The kind who would pant while alive. Lone Moon, who knew the situation. What the hell was that steel Barbie? Return my soft and adorable disciple. The bloody beating on the arena lasted for a whole 10 minutes before the referee outside the arena reacted. He hurriedly shouted, "Invincible. Invincible sect, Siyu wins." With that said, he jumped onto the arena, wanting the people in the arena to stop. Just as he approached, Siyu, who had already transformed into a steel Barbie, turned around and glared at him. Her eyes were still red, and her whole body began to attack indiscriminately. She had no intention of stopping. The referee was so frightened that he stopped. Shining. Lone Moon gritted his teeth and turned to look at the person beside him. It was all her fault. Shining looked confused. "What? Master?" I Ching, who was the only one who was calm, reminded her. "If she doesn't stop, that person is going to be beaten to death." And she was so angry that she seemed to be unable to hear what others were saying. "Oh." Shining finally spoke. She shouted, "Little Green, stop fighting." The people in the arena paused. They stopped instantly. She slowly turned her head and looked over. Her entire huge body trembled. Suddenly, she sniffled and tears began to flow out of her eyes. She pointed at the bell on the ground and began to bawl. "Sect Master Bell. Bell. My bell. Wow." For a moment, the entire arena was filled with Siyu's heartbroken cries. Everyone, what was going on? Why was the winner crying first? The one who should be crying should be the one who was beaten, right? Shining could not help but feel a little guilty. She got up and jumped onto the arena. She patted Siyu's shoulder and said, "Don't cry, don't cry." Chapter 74. The Yin family was indeed the wealthiest family in the Upper Azure world. The banquet was arranged at the largest restaurant in Yintian City, Zhengfeng Restaurant. Once the sky turned dark, they sent their disciples to invite the guests and cleared the place early. When Xining arrived, Xian Yuanyu and the head of the Yin family, Yin Feng, were already waiting at the door. They had met during the finals in the day, but they had not spoken to each other. Unlike the other three family heads, Yin Feng looked especially amiable and always had a smile on his face. Seeing them land, he quickly walked up to them. Xian Yuanyu took a few steps forward and bowed to Xining. "Great immortal." Then he turned and introduced, "This is the head of the Yin family, Yin Feng." "What a rare guest. Fellow Taoists, you must have had a tough journey." Yin Feng's smile deepened. "Good evening." Xining glanced at the restaurant in front of her and waved in a good mood. "Fellow Taoist." Yin Feng glanced at the people behind her and continued, "I was busy during the day and haven't had time to congratulate your sect's disciples for winning the Golden Core first place in the competition. Indeed, a great teacher produces a great disciple." Lone Moon stiffened. He felt like he had been shot in the knee again. As the banquet started, Xining had no interest in this kind of business flattery and went straight to the point. "How would I dare to start the banquet before everyone is here?" Yin Feng stepped back and said, "Fellow Taoist, thank you for attending this banquet. Please come in." Xining was really a little hungry. Just as she was about to enter, she bumped into a familiar sign at the entrance. She froze and stopped at the door, feeling cold sweat dripping down her face. "Master?" "What?" Yi Qing, who was following behind, was just about to speak when his eyes scanned the sign and he also froze. The sign was written in large gold letters, "Xining and dogs are not allowed inside." Seeing that they had suddenly stopped, Yin Feng followed their line of sight and immediately explained with a smile, "Oh, this was put up for a few rogue cultivators. A few years ago, a restaurant under the Yin family reported that 3 cultivators not only dined and dashed, but also tried to escape. That's why they put up this sign as a warning and punishment. The person on the sign is the mastermind. The 3 who dashed and dashed. Profiteers." Xian Yuanyu looked curiously and was shocked. Why does this person's name sound like... Before he could finish speaking, he felt 3 cold gazes poking at his chest and he froze. The great immortal's gaze suddenly became so scary? Did he say something wrong? "This sign has been up for more than a year. It's just an old matter that's not worth mentioning. Everyone please come in." Yin Feng was still smiling amiably, not noticing the abnormality of the few people. The moment he stepped into the shop, he seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Xining and said, "Oh yes, I only know that you are from Invincible Sect. May I know your names?" "Air." The corner of Xinying's mouth twitched. She glanced at the sign beside her and replied after a while, "My name is... Ting what?" She poked Chef beside her. A certain chef understood immediately and reminded in a low voice, "Yi Qing." "Yes, Yi Qing," she said seriously. "My name is Yi Qing." "My name is Lone Moon." Yi Qing immediately replied. "Lone Moon? Shit. MMP." Yin Feng was shocked. Yi Qing, Lone Moon. Weren't these the 2 sword cultivators who broke into the Xian Yuan family a year ago? He suddenly understood why Xian Yuanyu was so friendly towards them. So that was why. So it's Sect Master Yi and Supremacy Lone Moon. Yin Feng, who thought he knew the truth, turned to look at the other person on the right. "Then I wonder who this Supremacy is?" The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. Damn it, he had already told them all their names. What else was he supposed to say? He turned to glare at the 2 of them. After a while, he gritted his teeth and said, "Niu Huayan." Fortunately, he still had his real name. These 2 ungrateful bastards. "Supremacy Niu." Yin Feng nodded. "Everyone please come in." Only Xian Yuanyu looked confused. What was going on? Why did they all suddenly change their names? Great Immortal even changed her own disciple's name? Could it be that she was unhappy about today's banquet and deliberately did not tell the Yin family her real name? Great Immortal's thoughts were so hard to guess. When the group entered the restaurant, they realized that it was a whole different world inside. Immortal fog lingered and spirit chi filled the air. Every step they took, a different scene appeared in front of them. It did not look like they were in a restaurant but more like a scenic spot. Yin Feng led the group to the center of a peach forest. Only then did they see that there were many tables and chairs in front of them. The tables were already filled with all kinds of food. Xinying's eyes lit up. There were more than 10 servant girls standing by the table. The moment they arrived, a man dressed in blue rushed forward excitedly. The man was very tall and had the body of a model. It was just that his face was a little hard to describe. A mass of red, a mass of green and a mass of purple. It was especially colorful. Father. The man practically jogged over. He first bowed to Shining and the others. Greetings, supremacies. He immediately turned to look at the group of girls behind him. His eyes lit up and he said excitedly to the girl standing next to him, Miss Siyu, we meet again. Siyu was stunned. She lowered her head out of habit and hid behind Yu Hong. Fei, didn't I tell you to rest in your room? Why did you come out? Yin Feng smiled awkwardly and explained, This is my son Yunfei. He gave the man a look. Father is entertaining guests. How could Yunfei not come out to greet them? Everyone please take a seat. Yin Yunfei had no intention of going back. Instead he smiled even more brightly. He even led the group to their seats. But his gaze was fixed on Siyu. He was so enthusiastic that it seemed like he was glowing. There was hope. Who is this? Shining looked at Chef beside her. Yin Yunfei, second in the Golden Core stage, Yi Qing replied. He then added, the one who was beaten up by Siyu during the day. Oh. She suddenly thought of a certain figure who was beaten up during the day. She looked sympathetically at that person's face which had yet to recover. Young people these days have such strong tastes. How could he like someone after being beaten up? Shining wanted to continue gossiping, but she was too hungry. The moment she sat down, she focused on eating. Yin Feng, who was sitting at the head of the table, also began to flatter Shining. When Shining ate, she did not speak much. Apart from ma, oh, and in, she basically did not respond. Needless to say, apart from Shining, he had always been a man of few words. His replies were as simple as they could be. He only focused on silently moving the food in front of him to Xin Ying's table beside him. And the other 9 girls were a generation lower in status. Thus, Lone Moon was the only one left to answer the question. Yin Feng had wanted to get information out of them, find out their background, and build a good relationship. Although he was a cultivator, he was also half a businessman. He had thought that it would be easy to get information about their background. But he did not expect to meet Lone Moon. Half a current profiteer met a former profiteer from the people. One could imagine the result. In less than an hour, Yin Feng did not get any information at all. Instead, he was turned upside down by the other party. They even agreed to buy invincible sect spirit herbs at double the market price, and the Xian Yuan family would refine them into pills for free. By the time they reacted, Yin Feng was already holding the contract with their fingerprints. Brother Yin, brother Xian Yuan, I wish us a happy cooperation in the future. Lone Moon happily shook Yin Feng's hand, looking like a typical business elite. Xian Yuanyu, Yin Feng, where were they and what did they do just now? He disappeared early in the morning and only returned when it was dark. It had been a long time since he had threatened someone with his living expenses. Shining felt a little bored. Sect master. Sister Siyu suddenly walked in. She looked hesitant and conflicted as she looked at her timidly. I have something to ask you. Sure. Shining was feeling bored when she patted the chair beside her. Have a seat. Do you want some melon seeds? Thank you, sect master. Siyu bowed respectfully and sat beside him excitedly. What's the matter? She suddenly looked up at Yi Qing and lowered her head in embarrassment. Shining understood immediately. She coughed and said, Well, chef, why don't you go and make lunch first? Master, it's not lunchtime yet. Yi Qing looked at Siyu unhappily. He did not move. He was not leaving. Then how about some pastries? I've already prepared the pastries. Then pour some tea. The tea is still hot. Xin Ying's mouth twitched. She had no choice but to point it out. Go anywhere for a while. We want to talk about girly topics. Yi Qing was stunned. He looked hurt. Can't your disciple listen? You're not a girl. This is master's order. Listen to me. Yes, master. Only then did Yi Qing walk away. Before he left, he glared at Siyu coldly. Little bitch, you're trying to steal my master again. Say it. What's the matter? Once he was far away, she looked at Siyu. Sect master. Siyu lowered her head. After a while, she said in a low voice, In the future, can I not see young Master Yin? Young Master Yin? Who? He's the young master of the Yin family, Yin Yuanfei. Oh, that masochist. So it's a relationship problem. What's the matter? You don't like him? Ever since the banquet, that Yuanfei had been coming to look for her every day. He kept coming up with all sorts of excuses to ask her out. Things like giving her a down payment, giving her too little down payment, changing his mind and wanting to pay her in full. Father Nyo had high hopes for this young man. A0, young Master Yin, is very good. She lowered her head even more. But we're not compatible. After all, I used to be a fire, little green. Shining frowned and interrupted her. No one can change the past. You can only change the future. I think you're very good. You have to think you're good too. Only then will others think you're good. You have to learn to love yourself before you can love others. But, don't overcomplicate things sometimes. Shining stuffed a piece of cake into the corner of her mouth. It's fine as long as you're happy about it. If he cares about your past, that only proves that he's not worth your attention. If you like him, then be together. If you don't, then break up. What's the big deal? Is that so? Of course. She nodded vigorously. I've been through it. When it comes to relationships, it's normal to break up and get back together. It's fine as long as you don't take it too seriously. You can't hang on to one tree. Life is so long, you have to try hanging on to a few more. You're still young. That's why you're hesitating about whether you like him or not. Sect Master, have you been cultivating for a long time? Of course. I'm almost in my 30s now. 30? She paused. Sect Master's words are so profound. I've been cultivating for 60 to 70 years, but I still can't fully understand it. Shining stiffened. She coughed and said, keep it up. When you grow up, you won't be hesitating about whether you like him or not. You'll be hesitating about whether you like him or not. Is that possible? She felt as if she had opened the door to a whole new world. Of course. Trust me, that's how relationships between men and women work. But, her eyes brightened. He's the young master of the Yin family after all. If we offend him, won't it be bad for the sect? Don't worry. I'm here. What's there to be afraid of? All right, Sect Master. I understand. With that said, she seemed to have made up her mind about something. She stood up abruptly and said, I'm going over right now. With that, she stormed out the door. Wait a minute. Where was she going? What did she just say? Chapter 76. In the end, Siyu did not return until the afternoon. Shining was a little worried and asked Radish and Yu Hong to look for her. But when night fell, Yu Hong and Radish were nowhere to be seen, much less Siyu. Even Lone Moon had returned. Could something have really happened? The more Shining thought about it, the more she felt that something was wrong. It was just a breakup. Could it be that the masochist was not satisfied after being rejected and captured her? Go and find out if there's any news about the Yin family's young master. Lone Moon also realized that something was wrong. He immediately sent a girl to investigate. That girl had only left for less than 5 minutes when she hurriedly returned. Sect Master, in the afternoon, the Yin family's young master got into a conflict with someone in the west of the city. They even got into a fight. I heard that they met people from the soul-chasing tower. Soul-chasing tower. Lone Moon stood up in shock. Who are they? I Ching asked. That's an organization that's neither good nor evil. Lone Moon frowned. The people inside are good at concealing their tracks. Even high-level cultivators would not be able to detect them easily. I heard that their information network is spread all over the 3 Azure realms. They specialize in selling the secrets of various sects for a living. As long as you can afford it, you can find out what you want. Their main building is in the west of the city. Then why did they capture our sect's disciples? I Ching frowned. Maybe it's because they won the competition and some people are jealous. Lone Moon snorted and gripped the flute in his hand. If they want to be jealous, they have to see if they have the ability to do so. Do they really think that our invincible sect is easy to bully? With that said, he turned to Shining. Shining, I'm going to the soul-chasing tower with I Ching. We'll be back soon. All right. Shining nodded. But little, before she could finish, Lone Moon and I Ching had already disappeared in the west of the city. They had gone to find someone to settle scores with. A while later, Little White. Yes, Sect Master. When Little Hong and Radish left just now, they said they were going to the east of the city to find someone, right? I think so. Then can they find someone? Shining hesitated about whether she should chase after them and warn them. Just then, someone else came looking for them from outside. This person was dressed in the standard blue robes of the Yin family. He looked to be in his 40s and looked a little familiar. Greetings, Sect Master Yi. That person bowed to her. Ah. Xining hesitated for a moment. She thought of a certain forbidden token and reacted. Oh, you called me. Yes, I'm Sect Master Yi. This lowly one is the shopkeeper of Zhengfeng Restaurant, a branch of the Yin clan. He wanted to take advantage of the fact that this small sect had yet to become a marquee to completely suppress it to eliminate future troubles and ensure the unique status of the aristocratic family. Now that they had this weakness, they naturally wanted to crush Invincible Sect to death. If it was in the past, everyone would have a tacit understanding about this kind of thing. Perhaps they would even push him from behind. But the sect master of Invincible Sect was a great immortal. Be the great immortal Shen who single-handedly beat up 5 traveling immortals the moment she came to the Upper Azure world and almost destroyed the Shen Yuan family in one day. No one even knew how terrifyingly powerful she was. Until now, he couldn't even muster up any thoughts of resisting. If Yu Haiheng thought that such a person was easy to bully, then the Yu family was really too pitiful. Who knows what methods they used? The Yu family was still unwilling to let the matter rest. He glanced at Siyu and said, "Don't forget that Zhen Xiang said he lost his Dharma treasure. She suddenly became a body cultivator, isn't that proof? What's more, the senior sister she mentioned has the surname Yu. I've already done a blood test. She is indeed a collateral descendant of the Yu family and one of the missing fugitive slaves. Zhen Xiang's death, even if they weren't the culprit, but I did it." Xining finally couldn't take it anymore. She raised her hand and said, "That scum, I was the one who beat him up." Everyone was shocked and turned their heads to look at her. The Yu family even sneered. Xian Yuanyu was stunned. Why did the Great Immortal admit it herself? Were they going to start a fight? "Great Immortal, you did a good job." Xian Yuanyu changed the topic and continued to put out the fire. He said seriously, "That perfected Zhen Xiang is definitely not a good person. That's why you had to do it yourself." Yu Haiheng. Is this Xian Yuanyu crazy? That scum forced people to become human cauldrons, used them to test his medicine, and even used living people to refine pills. He is indeed not a good person. Xining said honestly. What, refining pills using living people? Yin Feng was shocked. That was something only fiendish cultivators would do. Nonsense, Yu Haiheng said anxiously. As if he hadn't expected her to say such things, he retorted, "Zhen Xiang is famous for being an easygoing person in the collateral family. Who would believe that he would do such a thing?" "I believe him." Xian Yuanyu immediately raised his hand. Yu Haiheng's chest tightened again. "I believe that the great Sect Master Yi is not the kind of person to accuse others. Since she has already done it, it must be Zhen Xiang who made a huge mistake." Xian Yuanyu. Yu Haiheng was furious. He didn't understand why Xian Yuanyu would rather offend the Yu family than help Invincible Sect. "Patriarch Yu, this is a misunderstanding. Quickly release the Invincible Sect disciples. I'm trying to save you, brother." Yu Haiheng didn't understand the hint in his eyes at all. He snorted and turned to look at Yin Feng. "Patriarch Yin, do you also think that Zhen Xiang deserved his death?" "This?" Yin Feng looked back and forth between Xian Yuanyu and Yu Haiheng. Wasn't this a matter between the Yu family and Invincible Sect? Why were the two of them fighting over it first? He hesitated for a moment, not knowing which side to take. Finally, he looked at his son, who was full of anticipation, and sighed. "I also believe in Sect Master Yi's character. If someone from the Yu family really did such an evil thing, I think Patriarch Yu would have to thank Sect Master Yi for helping you clean up the mess." Yu Haiheng was clearly unhappy with this outcome. He had wanted to suppress Invincible Sect, but he didn't expect that not only would he not get any benefits, he would also have to drag out a bunch of scandals that would embarrass the Yu family. Even so, they are still escaped slaves of the Yu family. Patriarch Yu's words are not right. Xian Yuanyu took the opportunity to say, if Zhen Xiang really did such an evil thing, he can no longer be considered a righteous sect. Naturally, he can no longer be a member of the Yu family. Then the human cauldrons under him are no longer slaves of the Yu family. Where did the escaped slaves come from? This matter has not been concluded. Just one side of the story is not enough to prove it. Yu Haiheng still didn't give up. Now we don't even know where Zhen Xiang's body is. How can we prove that he really practiced demonic arts? He's in Upper Azure Town, Xining said. That person should still be underground. Go and dig, you'll be able to find him. After some thought, she added, we might have to dig a little deeper. Underground. Xian Yuanyu shuddered as he recalled certain scenes. Suddenly, he didn't want to ask what exactly happened in Upper Azure Town. Yu Haiheng's expression completely darkened. There was nothing more to argue about. The Yu family had also received some news about Jin Xiang. They were just finding an excuse to suppress Invincible Sect. But if they really found Jin Xiang's body, the nascent soul's body would not decompose. Everything would be clear once they checked his meridians. Since we haven't found out the truth, let's stop here. Yin Feng stepped forward and said, Patriarch Yu, please let go of the 2 disciples of Invincible Sect. That's right, Patriarch Yu, hurry up and let them go. Xian Yuanyu urged. Siyu was overjoyed. Her previously tense nerves finally relaxed and she looked at Shen Ying excitedly. All right. Shen Ying seemed to have thought of something. She turned and looked straight at Yu Haiheng. Slowly, as if enunciating each word, she said, no matter what you find in the future, whether it's little green or little red. I don't care who they were in the past, but in the future they will be sisters of Invincible Sect. You can't just capture them. I don't have a good temper. You have to remember that. What did she mean? A threat? How dare a mere sect master threaten the Yu family? Yu Haiheng was so angry that he was about to stand up. Xian Yuanyu quickly stepped forward and held him back. He nodded at Shen Ying and chuckled. Of course. This is all a misunderstanding. Let's not take it to heart. Patriarch Yu, please let the other disciple of Invincible Sect be released. Yu Haiheng blinked furiously. This time Yu Haiheng finally understood what he meant. He snorted unwillingly and suppressed the anger in his heart. He gave a look to a traveling immortal elder beside him. The elder nodded. In a flash he disappeared from the hall. A moment later there was a thud and he appeared again. He casually threw the person he was holding onto to the ground beside Shen Ying. It had only been a few hours, but Yu Hong's originally bright red clothes were now covered in dark, dried blood. Her body, hands, and face were covered with deep wounds that revealed her bones. Her originally exquisite hair bun was now a mess. She looked very pathetic. Senior sister. Siyu rushed over and carefully helped the person on the ground. But Yu Hong looked up at Shen Ying. Her eyes immediately lit up. She called out softly, Sect Master. She opened her mouth as if trying to smile to reassure Shen Ying. However, the wound on her face opened up and a drop of blood slid down the side of her face. Shen Ying felt as if a string that had been pressing down on her had snapped. Something exploded from within her. He looked up at the head of the table and laughed. I really don't like to reason. Great Immortal, don't? But it was too late. In the next instant, Shen Ying had already appeared behind Yu Haiheng. Shen Yuan's heart sank. It's over. Gee. The radish nodded. Suddenly it seemed to have thought of something. It waved one of its leaves in front of her pitifully and let out a series of crying and trembling sounds. Gg. Shen Ying took a closer look and saw that its originally long emerald green leaves were broken in the middle. There was still green juice on the leaves. Injured. Is it painful? He glanced at the person at his feet. Was he the one who did it? Gg. He nodded. Her expression, which had just softened, immediately darkened again. She looked down at the person who was still trembling at her feet and turned to Xian Yuanyu, who had been watching the whole time. Vegetable Patriarch, do you have a knife? Ha! Xian Yuanyu, who was suddenly called out, stiffened. He looked at Yu Haiheng, who was lying on the ground on his last breath. Wasn't this person already crippled? Did he want to be chopped into pieces? Great Immortal, he's already like this. It's not good to use a knife, right? Ha! Murderous intent filled the air. Xian Yuanyu trembled and immediately straightened his back. He said righteously, Great Immortal. Great Immortal, do you want a long knife, a short knife, a padao, a large ring-shaped knife, or a zamadeo? With that said, he waved his hand and a dozen different kinds of knives floated next to her. Everyone. What happened to being brothers? Shen Ying randomly picked one and squatted down to look at the person on the ground. What else do you want? Yu Haiheng's eyes widened as he looked at the knife in her hand in horror. I'm the patriarch of the Yu family. The debt just now belongs to Little Red. You even touched Radish. You have to pay the price. With that said, she reached out to grab his head. He became even more terrified. He seemed to be trying his best to avoid her hand, but he couldn't move even half a step. He could only scream, No, stop. Shut up. It's just shaving his head. Do you have to go this far? He screamed even louder. Just as Xin Ying's knife was about to land on his head, a white light suddenly flashed around him. The figure that was still crying just a moment ago suddenly disappeared. The knife fell to the ground with a thud. Ah! Xin Ying was stunned. She got up and looked around. She realized that not only Yu Haiheng, but the 5 Yu family traveling immortals who were lying on the ground had also disappeared. They're gone. What sorcery is this? Shen Yuanyu, who was closest to the knife, was also in a daze. She could actually escape under the great immortal's nose. What was even stranger was that even he did not feel any spirit chi fluctuations. What sorcery was this? Xin Ying frowned and suddenly looked up. After a while she turned to the 2 girls and said, "I'm tired. Let's go home." "Yes, sect master." The 2 girls replied in unison and immediately followed behind Xin Ying obediently. Their eyes were so bright that they seemed to be glowing. As expected of their sect master, she was still so mighty and domineering. Intersection. Owen Yuanfei chased after her reluctantly. "Miss Siyu." Siyu turned around and replied in a gentle voice, "Scram. Don't disturb me from worshipping sect master." "Oh." She timidly retreated behind Yin Feng. Yin Feng, who had been in a daze the whole time, Xian Yuanyu, who was experienced, Xin Ying. Why did Little Green's attitude change so quickly? He suddenly wanted to know what exactly she was talking about. By the time Xin Ying brought the 2 girls back to the courtyard, it was already past midnight. I Ching and Lone Moon had also returned. When they heard the news, they wanted to go out to look for her, but they happened to bump into her at the door. "Master." I Ching quickly walked up to her. He looked her up and down before heaving a sigh of relief. Thank goodness she was not lost. "You came back from the Yu family? What exactly happened? Has it been resolved?" Lone Moon asked. Xin Ying yawned. "I'm so sleepy." "Ask them." Xin Ying casually plucked the sleeping radish off her leg and stuffed it into Father Nyo's arms. She turned and lay down on the table. "Sai, I don't understand why bad people always choose to do it at night. It's not good to disturb sleep." Lone Moon reflexively wanted to catch the radish, but found that it seemed to have gotten used to it. In an instant, it slipped out of his arms, shook its leaves and wrapped itself around his leg. It did not wake up at all. The corner of his mouth twitched. Using his divine perception, he found that the radish's spirit chi had been reduced by a quarter. It seemed to have been forced back to its original form. The patriarchs of the Yin family and the Shenyuan family tried to persuade them, but they refused to let them go. See, the sect master got angry and destroyed the Yu family? This sect leader is so powerful? I wonder who he is. I heard that the sect leader's surname is Yi, and his given name is a single character, Qing. Have you heard about what happened to the Shenyuan family a year ago? It was done by sect master Yi and elder Lone Moon. Oh, it's him. Xin Ying, Yi Qing, Lone Moon, who told you to change other people's names. In just 3 days, Invincible Sect's name had spread throughout the entire Upper Azure world. The Invincible Sect, which had been forced to become a secluded immortal sect, had suddenly become a first-rate immortal sect. It was even more powerful than the other immortal sects and was on the same level as the aristocratic families. News of the mysterious sect Master I Ching, destroying the Yu family in one night spread throughout the entire Upper Azure world. Lone Moon had also become familiar with the various sects because he had gone out to do business for the past few days. Whenever people talked about Invincible Sect, they would mention this soul formation supremacy who was better at doing business than the Yin family. Even the 9 girls who had participated in the competition had become the brightest stars among the younger generation of cultivators because Siyu had become the champion. But there was no Xin Ying. Not a single word, not a single stroke, not a single punctuation mark. Straight face, no one knew who Xin Ying was. Even the Yin family's band card that had been on display for a year had been removed. She did not even have the chance to become famous for eating and dashing. This time she had lifted a rock and dropped it on her own foot. It hurt a little. After this incident, the Yu family was completely holed up. Although they had a strong foundation and would not collapse just like that, without the support of the traveling immortals, their influence in the Upper Azure world was not as great as before. Lone Moon had originally thought that with the status of an aristocratic family, the Yu family would at least make a scene or stir up public opinion to threaten them. He did not expect them to admit defeat so thoroughly. As for what happened that night, the Yin family and the Shenyuan family did not come forward to clarify things, nor did they take sides. But in reality they were already siding with Invincible Sect. That was why the outside world made the invincible sect into a hidden immortal sect. After that night, Yu Haihing did not appear again. Even the Yu family only said that he had gone missing. When he thought of the person who saved them, he could not help but worry. He had a strange premonition that the Yu family would not be as cowardly as the Shen Yuan family. Perhaps they were secretly preparing a big move or something. It would not be long before they came knocking on their door. But he did not expect that before the Yu family came knocking on their door, an unexpected person would appear. Reporting to the two elders, the rabbit demon at the foot of the mountain said that he found a spy who wanted to break into Invincible sect. Yu Hong reported. Spy. Lone Moon was stunned. Could it be someone from the Yu family? He glanced at I Ching and instructed Yu Hong to keep the disciples from going down the mountain. Then he flew out with I Ching. From afar, they saw a group of 8th level and 9th level demons surrounding the array at the entrance of the mountain. They were shouting and fighting with a man dressed in black. The scene was very tense. What happened? I Ching and Lone Moon flew down and looked at the man. Their divine perception swept over immediately, but it seemed to touch a layer of fog. They could not find out the man's cultivation level at all. This man did not look simple. The two nobles are here. A rabbit demon stepped forward and said, "A little demon informed us that this man appeared sneakily at the entrance of the mountain. We blocked him." He nodded. I Ching had already stepped forward and said, "Who are you? Why did you trespass into Invincible sect?" The cultivator was clearly surrounded by more than 10 high-level demons, but he did not look the least bit afraid. He snorted and said, "I am the Tower Master of Soul Chasing Tower, Feng Ying. I came here today to seek justice from Invincible sect's sect master. It has nothing to do with others. Anyone who obstructs me will be killed." Soul Chasing Tower? Why did it sound so familiar? Chef, have you heard of it? Never heard of it. I Ching shook his head. It's okay if you haven't heard of it now. You will remember this name in the future. The man looked confident. This is Tower Master crazy? Did Xining forget to pay for her meal again? How did our sect master offend you? What the hell was Tower Master crazy? Shouldn't he be called Tower Mastering? Feng Ying's expression turned cold. He became even angrier. Stop pretending. 3 days ago, wasn't it your sect master I Ching who barged into my soul-chasing tower when I was not around? He even injured more than 100 of my brothers in the name of looking for someone. You are a dignified hidden immortal sect. Don't you dare to admit to hurting people? 3 days ago. Soul-chasing tower, looking for someone? In a flash, I Ching and Lone Moon suddenly remembered the same scene. Both of them froze. Holy shit, they finally remembered what kind of place Soul-chasing tower was? That night, they were misled by wrong information and destroyed the tower. Both of their faces twitched. What should they do? Their boss actually came looking for them. How on earth did he find this place? S.B. The person who barged and called himself Sword Cultivator I Ching. I have already found out that I Ching is the sect master of your Invincible sect. The more Feng Ying spoke, the angrier he became. He glanced at all the demons present and then at the two soul formation cultivators. He said with some fear, "Today we are here to seek revenge. It has nothing to do with other people. Please tell me, where is the sect master of Invincible sect now?" The corner of I Ching's mouth twitched. Lone Moon, however, was decisive. Without hesitation he pointed to the mountain on the right. "Over there." "Thank you." Feng Ying's figure flashed and instantly flew in. "I Ching, all the demons, what are you looking at? You have a share too, okay?" Lone Moon turned back and glared at I Ching. "Besides, she will be fine. I Ching, I feel like I have betrayed the sect." Chapter 80. Xining was watering radish. Ever since they returned from Tianyuan City, Radish had been hiding in the vegetable field, refusing to come out. Perhaps because of the trauma, its spirit chi had already recovered and its leaves had already grown back. Yet, it remained in the form of a radish and refused to change back to its human form. "Radish, why are you always hiding in the hole? Quickly change back to your human form." Xining advised earnestly as she watered it. "Gee. Indeed, little missy still likes my peerless looks. If you don't change back to your human form, there won't be enough people to clean up." Radish felt an arrow shoot through its heart. Xining was about to say a few more words when she suddenly heard footsteps coming from afar. It's clearly this direction. Why can't I find anyone?" Feng Ying had been following the direction that Lone Moon had pointed. He had also sensed the aura of someone nearby, but he did not see anyone. He became even angrier. He did not think that a dignified sect master would also be such a secretive person. He immediately used his divine perception and said, "System, bring up the map of this place." He did not believe that he would not be able to find them. Ding. Invincible Sect's map has been unlocked. Target found. 100 meters ahead is equivalent to about 330 feet. 330 feet? Feng Ying turned his head and scanned the spirit herb field in front of him 4 or 5 times, but did not find anyone. Where is she? System, did you see wrongly? You're looking for me? Shining could not help but ask. Oh. Feng Ying was shocked. Only then did he realize that standing among the spirit herbs was a dazed woman holding a water bottle. A woman. He was a little surprised. His expression darkened and he said loudly, "You're the sect master of Invincible Sect?" "Yes." Shining nodded honestly. "Who are you?" "Who am I?" He laughed coldly and said sarcastically, "Do you remember the name Soul Chasing Tower?" "I don't remember." Feng Ying stiffened as if he did not expect her to reply so directly. "Then you'd better remember this name from now on." The more he spoke, the angrier he became. "I'm the Tower Master of Soul Chasing Tower, Feng Ying. I'm here to demand an explanation for what happened 3 days ago." "What? You're still quibbling? You dare to say that the one who barged into Soul Chasing Tower 3 days ago and injured hundreds of my disciples for no reason was not you?" "No. You." He had never seen such a shameless person before. His chest felt stifled, and the more he spoke, the angrier he became. He simply pulled out his sword and pointed it at her, saying, "You've gone too far. Even though my soul-chasing tower is not some aristocratic family or immortal sect, we will not allow anyone to bully us." He activated his spirit chi and several spirit swords appeared around him. He pointed them at Shining and said, "Don't think that you can do whatever you want in the Upper Azure world just because you have a high cultivation level. I, Feng Ying, will seek justice today." Immediately after, he sent a voice transmission to the system. "System, help me choose a winning cultivation technique immediately and stimulate all my potential. Today I must teach this Invincible Sect master a lesson." Feng Ying was not a careless person. Since he dared to go against the Yu family's Invincible Sect leader, his cultivation was definitely not weak. He had indeed sought out Invincible Sect in a moment of anger. But since he dared to come alone, he had naturally made ample preparations. However, so what if the opponent was a nascent soul stage cultivator? With the system as his trump card, he would definitely win. Moreover, this was not the first time he faced off against a soul formation stage cultivator. Regarding this, he had absolute confidence. After he finished speaking, he did not worry at all. He raised his sword and rushed toward the other side. As usual, a series of notifications rang in his ears. Ding. The host has stimulated the highest potential. The time limit is 15 minutes, that is, 15 minutes. Ding. Scanning the enemy's strength. Starting to match the most suitable cultivation technique in the database. Ding. The enemy's combat strength is 80%, 90%, 100%, 200%, 1000%, yen percent at yen percent at yen percent yen percent. Ding ding ding. Exceeding statistical value. Serious overflow, percent at yen percent at hashtag yen percent. Transcending plain high-level life form. Discovered Big Boss. Activating emergency response measures. Ding. Emergency mission. Please kneel down in front of Big Boss and express your desire to suck up to her. What? Feng Ying's sword was already less than half a meter away from Shining. Suddenly he felt an electric current coursing through his body. His knees weakened and he fell to the ground. His head hit a pile of stones at the side with a thud. Feng Ying, Shining. This is the first time we're meeting. Is there a need to be so formal? A strange silence fell over the place. System, what the hell are you doing? Feng Ying was roaring in his heart. He directly used his divine perception to send a voice transmission. Why did I suddenly kneel down? Didn't I ask you to stimulate my potential? What's going on? Ding. The opponent is a high-level life form from another plane. She's an existence that transcends this plane. Why do I care what kind of life form she is? I don't understand what you're saying. I just want to help my soul-chasing tower vent our anger and beat him up. Ding. The system's safety treaty states that the host is forbidden from acting impolitely towards an existence that is higher than this plane. In short, courting death. What do you mean? Are you saying that I can't beat her? Ding. In front of a high-level life form, the host is equivalent to trash. Impossible. I shouldn't have overestimated myself and challenged invincible sect. I beg you to make this stupid system stop, please? I'll do anything you want me to do. I'm going blind. Hence, when I Ching and Lone Moon arrived, what they saw was the Tower Lord of the Soul-Chasing Tower, who had been saying that he wanted revenge, hugging Xin Ying's thigh and crying so hard that the heavens shook and the earth cracked. His tears flowed like a river. The two of them, what the hell? Chapter 81. System? Lone Moon was stunned. He scanned the person in front of him from head to toe. This isn't a cultivation world. Why would there be a system? Don't tell me you transmigrated too? Was transmigration something freely nowadays? Or anything? Transmigration. What do you mean? Feng Ying, who had finally stopped crying, could not help but burp. He frowned and asked, "Looks like it's not?" Lone Moon was even more curious. "Then what exactly is this system in your body?" "Why should I burp? Tell you burp." Feng Ying had no intention of cooperating at all. He snorted arrogantly. Unfortunately, the burps that came out from time to time destroyed his original arrogance. "This is called a system burp thing. It has already established a soul burp contract with me. You guys are jealous." Before he finished speaking, a series of mechanical sounds that only the two of them could hear rang out in the next second. Ding. Serial number, CIH-12 system at your service. This system was born in the 3584. 65-dimension plane, planet ZC-999, Heng Yucheng Corporation. Due to the sudden interstellar storm, it fell into the plane crack and came to this plane. Heng Yucheng Corporation is dedicated to the development of growth systems. CIH-12 is the 12th system in the series. It can guide and correct the host's inappropriate behavior in all aspects and ensure the safe and healthy growth of the host. Now bound to the host, Feng Ying. Feng Ying. The seller sold it too quickly, didn't he? For all? What did you hear? Lone Moon glanced at Xin Ying. The system's voice could only be heard by Feng Ying and her. What exactly is that thing? Even I Ching looked over curiously. Air. Xin Ying thought about it and explained after a while. In short, this is a parenting system. The two of them paused before saying in unison, "Oh." Then they both turned to look at a certain child. "How do you know that this is a parenting system?" Feng Ying exploded. He was a nascent soul-perfected one. How could he be a parenting system? "Do you know that it, ding?" Before he could finish, the system's voice rang out again. Serial number, CIH-12. Main functions include detection, navigation, persuasion, demonstration and a full set of basic rules and regulations of planet ZC-999. It is applicable to any newly born life form which is a young host. Feng Ying, whose system do you belong to, hey? You can't undermine me like this. Ever since he came to Invincible Sect, his system seemed to have changed owners. What a good system. Xin Ying complimented. Ding. Task release. Please say thank you to the boss. My heart is so tired. Say it. Xin Ying pressed him down on the chair, turned around and sat on the seat of honor. She grabbed a pastry and said, "Why did you suddenly run to the back of the mountain and step on my radish field?" She had been watering it for half a day. Although she did not like to eat vegetables, it was still the fruit of her labor. However, he had stepped on half of it. The corner of Feng Ying's mouth twitched. So this was the main point of her kidnapping him? Who cares about your radish fields? Humph, the winner takes all. But don't expect me to reveal any information. Ding. Exporting host's data? Shit. Host Feng Ying. Life formed from a low-level plane. Local age, 236 years old. Gender, male. Mid-stage nascent soul realm. Metal, fire and earth triple spirit root. Low-grade aptitude, already upgraded to high-grade. Bound to the system at the age of 3. Successfully activated at the age of 39. Skills, swordsmanship, invisibility, mixed element spell, etc. Host's major incident reading, 1. 5 years and 3 months old. Secretly kissed the 4-year-old girl next door. Beaten up by the enemy's parents. Not life-threatening. 2. 10 years and 7 months old. Wet the bed at 3 in the morning. Burned the bed sheets and caused a fire. Not life-threatening. 3. 20 years and 8 months. Shut up. Feng Ying shouted anxiously. His face instantly turned red. He had the urge to find a hole and hide in it. For all. Flip's table. Why didn't he know that the system had a recording function? Why was the record from hundreds of years ago still there? People said it was a child-rearing system. Did it really become a child-rearing system? To make it easier for everyone present to understand, Shining read out loud every time the system said a sentence. In an instant, the gazes of the three people gathered on him. Don't tell anyone. For the first time in his life he had the urge to die. 5 minutes later, ahem, that. Lone Moon coughed. He finally shifted his gaze away from a certain 10-year-old cultivator who still wet the bed. So, he relied on this system to find Invincible Sect? Although he had told his business partner, the Yin family, the location of Invincible Sect was located in the Demon Realm. That was why they agreed to meet in Upper Azure Town. The Yin family would not reveal their location. In addition, there were demons everywhere in the Demon Realm. It would be extremely difficult for him to reach Invincible Sect safely. He only had nascent soul cultivation. He could only have relied on the system to get here. So what if that's the case? Feng Ying turned his head angrily. He looked like he had nothing to lose. He turned to look at Shining, who was sitting lazily at the side. He gritted his teeth. What the hell? He really did not expect the system to suddenly make such a problem. Not only could he not vent his anger, but it also gave him strange missions. He had lost all the faith he had built up over hundreds of years of cultivation. What did the system mean by Big Boss? You. He could not help but ask, you, what did you do to my system? Why are you the only one who can hear what the system says? And it had to answer every question. Shining was stunned. She shook her head honestly. I don't know. How could you not know? He jumped up from his chair. Then why is it always helping you? If not for the fact that soul contracts could not be cancelled, he would have suspected that this fellow called the system wanted to change owners. I really don't know. Forget it if you don't want to say. She's not lying to you. Lone Moon sounded like an experienced person. She says she doesn't know, then she really doesn't know. You'll be fine once you get used to it. Naive. Why bother explaining reasons to a cheat? Just bear with it. Feng Ying obviously did not believe him. He looked at Shining angrily. I was unlucky to fall into your hands today. Kill me if you want, but I will not let you off for destroying my soul-chasing tower. Soul-chasing tower? Shining was stunned. She subconsciously turned to look at the two people beside her. What does he mean? The two of them froze. Lone Moon, that? This person seems to be fine. Shining, you interrogate him first. I'll go and check on the disciples' cultivation. I Ching, it's almost noon. Master, I'll go and cook. With that said, the two of them disappeared in a whoosh. Shining. Son of AB***. Why did that person call you Shining? Feng Ying was stunned. Aren't you the sect master of Invincible Sect I Ching? Do you have two names? The corner of Shinying's mouth twitched. She turned to look at him. Didn't you say that Soul Chasing Tower knows everything? Why are you asking me? Of course. His face was full of pride. I'm not bragging. As long as I want to, I can even find out what kind of underwear the masters of the 4 aristocratic families wear at night. Oh, then can you find out what kind of underwear they wear today? You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.